Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another episode of Into the Fray, leering at you from the woodline. Visit the mothership at intothefrayradio.com. There you can find all the episodes, the blog posts, ITF gear, and sign up for the free guest newsletter. The weekly show is, of course, always free and available in all podcatchers, but if you'd like to support the show, and why wouldn't you, go to the website and click Become an Insider, which in turn gets you extra content each and every month. And by the way, if you would be so kind as to leave a rating and review in your listening platform of choice, Cosmic Karma shall be yours. Be part of the discussion by joining the interactive ITF Facebook group, follow on Twitter at ITF_radio, and Instagram. If you have an experience that you'd like to share, email Shannon at intothefrayradio.com or call the hotline anytime at 844-866-3366. Thanks so much for listening. Now, if you would be so kind, buckle up your safety belts. Put that tray table in the upright position. Liftoff is upon us.
And that way you're not shutting the door in his face. You're opening another one. It's up to them whether they walk through it.
Absolutely. And that way we see what's really going on. And those are the right questions to ask. Instead of jumping in and going, oh, well, you definitely have a demon in your home. I mean, how would, there's far too many people out there, just everything is demons. It's rampant out there lately.
Isn't it nuts? Yeah. And if you look back, I mean, it just surprises me all the time, Shannon. I'll tell you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to just go off like this, but you'll understand. I've been watching a lot of, because my son's going through what he's going through, color television and HD really gets him with the brain injury now, So we've been watching a lot of black and white, old nostalgic movies, which is cool. Because it doesn't affect that.
Yeah.
And plus, I can introduce him to some really terrific old movies that I remember from my childhood, like Harvey. Have you ever seen Harvey?
No.
With Jimmy Stewart. What a wonderful movie. Oh gosh, you've got to watch it. Watch it. And just watch it with just, bowl of popcorn and just love it. That's a movie that could never be remade and never be the same. That has to stay like it is. Arsenic and Old Lace. It's another one. Just fantastic. Funny. I mean, and you'll remember it forever. So we've been watching, like I said, a lot of old movies. And I found some that just really had it right. There's an old Abbott and Costello that's called The Time of Their Lives. And basically it's about an old house, and people go in and it's haunted, and they have a seance and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And it's two ghosts that are stuck. They were killed during the Revolutionary War, and they were killed as traitors, but they weren't traitors. So they stuck around and were always stuck there to try to clear their name, and they're haunting this house. And but it's funny. But you know what, doggone it, if they didn't pretty much get it right, I mean, way back in the day, we're talking 1938, maybe 39. If any later, early 40s tops.
And I love that, because that's without all the fancy gadgets and gear and even though I recently, as you know, I gave my daughter for Christmas a legitimate ghost, quote unquote, hunting kit. I hate that term, but for lack of a better term. But, you know, it's a good, like, $500 case full of goodies. And, well, sure as heck, Mama's going to be using that too. So,
absolutely.
Even without that, isn't that incredible? They just, like you said, they had it spot on.
They had it spot on.
Have you ever tried to do like a table tapping session or anything like that, Sysco?
I have been in on. I have been in on them. I don't do them because I just don't have that. If I don't, I'm going to tell you the truth, just like any other time. If I don't know what I'm doing, I don't do it because I know enough to know don't do it. You know what I mean? Unless you know what you're doing. So I don't just jump in. I mean, there's some things I've done, you know, I've gotten a lot of good stuff with dowsing rods and because that's all I need to just confirm what I'm feeling, if that makes sense.
Of course, you're very sensitive though too. So I could see where a simple tool like a dowsing rod would be very effective for you. What about something like, have you ever been in a location that had a psychomantium? You know, the dark room with a mirror and you're just sitting in it's a simple, like, super dark room, pitch black. I've
heard of it. Yeah. I've not done it. Yeah. I've not done it, but I've heard of it. And I think that people can get really great stuff from that. But then again, you can think, you know, are you going in? I often thought, now, again, not a scientist, not an expert, just a regular gal here, you know, saying, I don't know. But, you know, it's like water immersion. You know, can you imagine? They say if you're in water for so long, you start to get that kind of hypnotic, you know, what is it? Is it really that? I mean, that's very much like scrying. And I have a lot of friends who totally, you know, use that and get into that. Or it's very similar to, if you go back in the old days, the crystal ball, the bowl of water, you know, lots of things are done with water, you know. So, you know, I hesitate to say I don't discount anything, and I don't, you know, if I haven't done it myself or seen it done and tried to figure it out the best of my ability, if all of my radar isn't going on positive when something happens and I've got to ask questions or whatever, I'll ask those questions and see if I can fix that up and try to get a good thing. But I don't jump into anything and believe, but I don't disbelieve in the same way. Like if somebody asked me, do you believe in fairies? I'd say, sure. Do you believe? Because there's so many people out there that have seen something they believe to have been a fairy, you know, whether that be, you know, however you describe it. We just watched Bright the other day.
Oh, I was seeing the preview for that. How is that?
Very cool. Very cool. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's funny in the right spots. It's deep in the right spots. It's absolutely, it's almost like an apocalyptic.
Yeah.
It's almost like an apocalyptic, everything comes in all the races. And instead of just being races as we see them now, which in my opinion, we should it's a human race. So that's the way it should be, but that's just me. And they add in the fairies and the elves and, you know, the orcs and, you know, and everybody's kind of like cohabitating together and how that would be. So and magic. So it's almost like, it's probably, tell you the truth, very close to what's going on right now, but just behind the scenes. I mean, to think that we know everything is a little arrogant and kind of, you know, ignorant at the same time, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's like saying there's no aliens. It's like saying no aliens. To look into space and say that we're the only people, the only planet that has any life or any intelligent life. Gosh, that's got to be, you know, to me, that's just so sad, you know, and to think that we're the only ones, that's quite arrogant. And it's, you know, to think that we're the smartest things that are out there too, isn't very smart, is it? You know?
Well, everyone will need an adult diaper when they finally show up, and they're a lot smarter than us. Somebody was just giving a talk on that there are other dimensions out there, and chances are they are, actually, not chances are, he's like, they are far smarter than anybody in this room. He was like talking at, you know, some like quantum physics, you know, crazy talk. So obviously you have Netflix because Bright is a Netflix original. Have you guys watched Dark?
I put that on my list last night.
Oh my gosh! I'm not saying anything.
It
is incredible. Please
That's
watch
my next
it.
thing. That and Wormwood. I have to.
Yeah,
I have to.
Do Dark first. I think that I enjoyed Wormwood because I enjoy that MK Ultra ties into Stranger Things, all that stuff. But Dark is holy cow! At one point, it all just like clicks in. You're going, oh my gosh,
that's so cool.
Right up our alley. It's incredible.
Netflix, I don't want to piss off your censors or anything, but Netflix has been kicking some prime butt lately. I mean, God bless them.
I'm wondering, I'm wondering if the big budget Hollywood flicks are like dead. I mean, really, because it's all going in. I mean, Netflix has now got Will Smith and all these other guys doing original shows shown on Netflix.
Yeah.
And they just increased their subscription rate. I'm like, I'll pay $20 a month. I love Netflix. And everybody used to dog Netflix, of course. You're like, oh my God, there's nothing on here. Like, what are these movies? What the heck is this? But
right. I'm a binger for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm a binger for sure. And if I can't find it on that, I'll go back to, I'm a huge Dickens fan. I'm just huge. I just love, my cat's named Dickens. I mean, huge. I mean, and come towards Christmas, I'm going to watch every Scrooge ever made over and over till the people in my house get so sick, And I found a thing called Dickensian. It was off of BBC, and it plays on the BBC or the UK Netflix, but not on ours. And I'm like, what? So I kept going and I kept going. It's basically was a one season of like 20 shows. And it's all based off of Dickens characters, and they're all living and cohabitating at the same time, on the same street and everything that happens with them. Oh yeah, it's really fabulous. It's supposedly it was real high, spent a lot of money, high budget. And I couldn't find it. So I found it, Daily Motion or whatever. So I've been watching that. So as soon as I get done with that, because I'm a binger, I got to finish. When I started, I got to finish it. Yeah. Whatever, a little here, a little there. But that's my next thing is the Dark, and Wormwood, that. Yeah. And I don't really watch much regular TV anymore. It's all it's really garbage.
Crap. It's crap anymore.
So garbage.
We have all these, fancy movie channels anymore, HBO and Stars and Cinemax, and of course
I don't even watch them.
It's terrible. You thumb through it and you're like, why am I paying this extra money a month when they're paying stuff you'd never want to watch? Just tasteless movies. We watched the latest Will Ferrell movie called Casino or Casino Night, or what the heck is it? Not Casino. That's actually a good movie. Fantastic movie. Yeah. But anyway, his daughter has to go to college. They don't have the money, so they open up this this casino in their friend's home. It was not even funny. And you're like, you guys are trying so hard to be funny. And I love Will Ferrell, but I'm like, oof, that was bad, buddy. That was really bad.
Yeah. There's some of them. He had that one where he was going to jail and he hired little Kevin Hart to train him.
Yeah.
And one of my sons was watching that when I was over at his house, and I'm like, what? Well, this is just, this is 15 minutes of funny wrapped by two hours of stupid.
It's not exactly what it is.
It's not even funny anymore. You mean, I'll tell you what, the last time I watched a really garbage movie, and I'm going to get a lot of people upset here, but I stole the CD from my son, and I loved it so much that when he asked for it back, I actually put the wrong DVD in the cover so I could keep it an extra 2 weeks. And that was how rotten of a mom am I.
That's a great move. I want to remember that.
And I just played it. I just played it stupid. Oh, I wouldn't know what it was at the Hangover.
Oh, loved it.
Loved it. I just couldn't help. it. I think it was something about Bradley Cooper's straight face and saying, oh. I mean, the whole thing, if you just took it as a thing, was a garbage movie. But I love it when somebody keep a straight face in a room of crazy.
See,
and just act like, that's funny to me.
See, there's very few original movies anymore, like Dumb and Dumber. Like one of my all-time favorites. There will never be another Dumb and Dumber, and I know they've made 2 and 3 and Harry Met Lloyd. I can't even watch that stuff.
Can't repeat it.
They should have just left it the hell alone. But Dumb and Dumber, The Hangover is great because it's so original. I mean, the tiger, Mike Tyson's tiger in the bath. I mean, what? Who writes this stuff? I love these guys. Cisco, do you like Westerns at all?
Love them.
Okay, Godless. Did you watch Godless on Netflix? You will love that show. It's incredible.
I have it on my list.
Okay.
You
have really a good list. There you go. Okay, so now
I have really a good list.
You have a few weeks set up for you.
Blunders. I'm going to try real hard because I do a lot of stuff in the studio.
Yeah.
So I'll set up. I don't even watch them on my laptop. I'll put them on my little Android and I'll set it up and I'll just start twisting wires or making dream catchers or whatever it is I'm doing. And I can binge. I mean, my all-time, now this is shameful, but I'm going to go ahead and admit it. My all-time worst binge, I had about 5 orders I had to put out, and they were big orders, and it was a lot of intense work. And I had the time off. I was on vacation for my regular job, and I binge watched all of Supernatural. And I'm talking all seasons with 24 to 26 episodes per season. We're talking big time now. In less than 6 days.
It's got to be some kind of record, right?
I think it is.
They should have a Netflix Olympics for that kind of a thing. The binge watching Netflix Olympics. And just time it.
I watched a lot of demons explode, dude. I watched angels go up and down and fall and rise again. I watched demons explode. I watched stuff, and I'm like, why am I watching this? What is wrong with me?
I can't stop. Yeah.
But I was just so in it and I was getting so much work done. And I'm like, if I stop now, it's like, wearing the old baseball jersey when you watch the game. I was afraid to stop because I was getting so much good stuff done.
Gotta get in that mode. Whatever works.
And then when it was over, you feel like this letdown, like, what am I going to do now? It's over.
Oh, it's a terrible feeling at the end of every single season. Like Game of Thrones and all that. Now we have to wait till 2019. I'm like, come on, you guys. Of course, that will be the final season. And then everyone's really going to cry.
Yeah. I got about half of the last episode of Longmire to go.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like, let me finish that one up. Let me do this. Let me finish that.
Well, that's a good list. Boy, I think Netflix should sponsor us. What do you think? We just gave them a huge plug.
I think they should, babe. I think they should. But they got a good thing going. And, we're not the only ones out there, obviously. People love to do that. They love I was homesick with the flu when Stranger Things came out. I watched the whole thing in like a day. That was a
perfect time.
Whole thing in a day. I could stop.
If they can afford to pay Will Smith his daily wages for a Netflix original, they're doing pretty damn good. So bravo to them. Well, so we were supposed to have our lovely friend Steve on, but he's a little under the weather. So we want to send out the good vibes, everybody, to Steve Stockton. He is a little under the weather, so we'll make sure to get him on very soon. But you were kind enough to hop on with me here for a little. Now, you know how my show can be a little dark, and sometimes we talk about really dark subjects or even literal dark subjects standing in your room, dark entities, right? But, you've got some nice kind of light stories, very uplifting stories to talk about tonight, including some angels and some things on the other side that might still be interacting with us. So, yes, and before we go, of course, if you want, we'll talk a little bit about you and Steve's book. So we'll make sure to get all those plugs in there for you guys. But I don't know where you want to start here, Sysco, but that is completely up to you.
Well, I'm starting by relighting my sage because, and my Palo Santo wood. I don't play when you talk about this stuff, babe. I don't talk about this. So, but anywhere you want. If I may, I would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we might be up into the Kwanzaa now. So happy Kwanzaa and Hanukkah, and however your holidays may be going. I hope they were spent doing what you love to do, and if you were around family, that you got to enjoy them, because I tell you, as we all know, things change so quickly. So make sure you tell the ones you love how you feel, and put up a little bit more with Uncle Eddie's funny jokes, or somebody else might not have given you what you wanted, or they've got some other stuff. Family is wonderful, and I tell you, I'm going to tell you some stories tonight that if you are on the fence about whether or not your loved ones can interact with you while after they have crossed over, I hope you will leave tonight believing a little more that they can, because I can tell you right now, in my short life of 55 years, I've spent a lot of time, I don't want to say investigating, but that's exactly what it's been. And I've been lucky enough to have multiple encounters with many different things. And at the time, I may not have understood them, and I may not understand them any more now than I did then. But if you take them as a whole, if one of them is true, and one of them is as I perceive it to be, then your loved ones do live on, just in another way. It's energy, and energy is not destroyed. It just changes shape. But their love for you continues on. And I have a few stories tonight that may help you to believe that.
Beautiful. Well said. Thanks, Sysco.
Thank you. Welcome. And at Christmas time, it's very hard. I can tell you that my mother died when I was 12. My father was gone when I was 3. So I was basically an orphan at 12. And I can tell you I had some holidays, and it's always holidays, it seems, isn't it, that we get a little more melancholy and miss the ones we love, or we might be somewhere, but we always want to be somewhere else or with someone else, or, no matter how many people and loved ones you have around you, you yearn for that one you can't have anymore. And that's a hard time for people. And I can tell you this. Would you like to hear the most recent thing that's happened that will give you a little idea?
Would love to.
Okay. My son and I, we're sitting on the couch, and we were watching one of those old funny movies I was telling you about. And I believe it's on Turner Classic Movies, or one of those where they show you the old stuff. And there was another one coming on, and we were doing some Christmas crafting. And so I said, well, let's stick around for this one. This next one is really good, and then we'll go on and do something else. And in between, on that channel, sometimes they show you an old newsreel or something that they showed in the theaters back in the 40s or whatever. And it's usually something about the war. And it was all about Christmas time. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they show this clip. And the clip was a tenor named Mario Lanza. He was very popular in the 50s, maybe late 40s, 50s, early 60s. And he happened to be my mother's favorite vocalist. Now, as I said, I lost my mother in 76. And you cling on to those memories. And of course, music is one of the things that will bring you back in time quicker than anything. It's like smells or something else. Music takes you back in time. And there's Mario Lanza, and he is doing, it's a clip from a movie Caruso he did about another famous tenor. And he's standing and he's singing Ave Maria in his best voice. And that just so happened to be my mother's favorite Christmas song. And I kind of looked up at her picture and I went, yeah, that one's for you, Mom. I remember. Because all the time, I just say stuff like that,
Yeah.
And I say it out loud. I don't care anymore. And I looked at my son and I said, listen to this. I said, this is your Grandma Peggy's favorite Christmas song. Listen to this guy, the way he sings this. It's absolutely phenomenal. And he did. And even more so after that, because it's sung in Latin. He says, well, what does it mean in Latin? And I actually Googled it, and isn't Google fantastic? And it told me the translation, and I read it to him, and he said, man, that is pretty. And I said, yeah, and I said, well, that was cool. I said, we got to, remember her, and that was kind of a moment. And we went on with our business, right? So you had asked me if I ever done tabletop conversations or anything
Hold
like
on
that.
1 second, Sysco. It's breaking up again. Hold on 1 second. Let's see.
Okay.
You sound better now. Like that.
Better now? Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sorry. Okay. Keep going.
That's okay. You were asking me if I've ever done seances and things like that. Of course, I've never conducted them, but I've been at many. And I had set up old Victorian seance because, a lot of the old English, they told ghost stories on Christmas Eve. It's a big thing. That's where the whole Christmas Carol idea and everything comes from. So I had set up with a friend of mine. She was going to be the medium conducting it at a little shop on Main Street with another friend of mine. She owns a shop. And it was sold out seats, 13 seats. And the medium got the flu 2 days before the seance. So she called me and said, can you help? Can you help? And what do you do when your medium gets the flu before a seance? What are you going to do? So I put out the blast amongst the friends and everything. And I hit up a couple of our little groups and stuff. And I said, help. And about 15 minutes later, I got a response from a lady. And I looked at her stuff and I talked to a couple other people. And they said, yeah, she's terrific. And I said, okay, great. So I said, here, call me. And she called me. Never met her, to my knowledge. My hand up, Scout's honor. And I mean, I may have bumped into her in a room and never realized it. But as far as I know, I've never met the woman. And she said she didn't know me. So I'm talking to her on the phone and I'm telling her about the setup and where to go and who to call and trying to get it all fixed up for my friend. And she says, excuse me. She said, Sysco? I said, yeah. She goes, I hate to interrupt you. She says, but I'm getting a lady here that wants to say something to you. And she's not going to let me finish talking until she said she's got a very strong energy. And I just leaned back and I smiled and I said, go ahead. By all means, go ahead. She says, well, I've got a mother figure. And I said, uh-huh. And I'm smiling because I know my mom. She's very strong, And she said, I'm getting a Margaret or a Maggie. And I said, well, that's her. Spot on, because her name is Margaret. And a lot of people called her Maggie or Peggy. And I said, okay, well, what does she have to say? And she said, she told me a couple things, and she told me a couple things about my son. And she said, you tell him that she was there. You're right. And I said, I know that. And she says, she's smiling. She knows you know. I said, okay. And then she says, was she very religious? And I said, well, she had some pretty strong beliefs, but I would say she's more about the spiritual side than any one religion. Why? She says, I'm getting religious. And I said, well, what are you seeing? And she said, well, it's hard to describe. She's standing in front of me and she's singing Ave Maria.
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, okay, I get it. And she says, okay, now she's got her hands in front of her. She's smiling. She's pointing and she says, I was there. And I said, I know she was. Oh. Tell her I know she was and I love her. Now, that was less than 48 hours after that had happened, sitting on the couch with my son doing Ave Maria.
That was less than 48 hours.
Yep. She found a way to get through. And I'm not saying that they have the power to do this, or this. This is how it works. People think that it would take a lot to say, okay, I'm really thinking about my mom, or I'm really thinking about my brother, or I'm really thinking about, and if I could just know that he was okay. And you walk into a store and his favorite song is playing all of a sudden, you better believe they can do that. It's just energy. Now, if you think about what it would take, I can't explain how. You know what I mean? Maybe we're not supposed to know how, but it's happened too many times to too many people. It's happened to me multiple times. Have you ever been thinking of a song and you get in your car and you turn on the car and here's this song? And what does that mean? I don't know. I can't tell you that. But if I walk into a store and all of a sudden I've been working on a song from 1974 that's not on the regular regurgitated 20 songs. It's out of some vault box somewhere, and it happened to be her favorite song, and it's saying exactly what I need to hear at the same time. That's not a coincidence. If you're going to be on the fence about something like that, and you're thinking, okay, that's just a coincidence, what's it going to hurt for you to throw your foot over on the other side of the fence and go, maybe it isn't.
Right.
Right. Wouldn't life be a little bit, more magical, And if we can't prove it one way or the other, what's the harm in going, okay, I needed that. Thank you.
Yeah, it makes you feel a little better. Absolutely.
Yeah, a little better.
What is the harm in it? To say, well,
and somebody,
maybe.
Yeah. And what's the chances that this woman I've never met before, still to this day, haven't met her, talked to her on the phone once, And in fact, we got snowed in and I couldn't go to the seance, so I didn't even get to meet her there, but she went and carried it off, did a great job. But she doesn't know me. And she certainly wasn't here in my living room when I was listening to Mario Lanza singing Ave Maria, and she doesn't know my mother or that her name was Maggie. And, people, there's so many skeptics that'll go, oh, okay, you fed her. I didn't feed her anything. You know what I mean? We talked on the phone for like 6 minutes, and this woman just handed me, practically everything that was, being said, because she added more to it. You would, done this and little things. And I said to my son, my mom was there, or somebody was there telling me, you know what I mean? But at the same time, if I add that to all my radar, okay, not only, Shannon, did I get that, but I don't know if you ever had that, people say the hair standing up on your arms and on the back of your neck and that kind of thing. But have you ever had the back of your head tingle?
I've heard of that before, but I don't recall ever or marking the occasion. Maybe it just doesn't happen often enough to me. But.
Oh, honey, it's so hard to describe, but it's such an awesome, I can't describe it to you. And then at the same time, all of that happens. And then she just felt like she walked right through me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and then your whole body, all of a sudden, goosebumps. Not just the hair on your arms, but your entire body. Like you were just almost like you put your hand on one of those, Tesla things,
At what point did the back of your head start to tingle? At the Ave Maria point when she
right
brought
after
that up?
She was talking about Ave Maria. She said she was there.
Yeah.
And then she says, okay, now she's smiling. And she said she's pointing her finger. I was there. She was emphasizing with her finger. What she saw.
Right.
I didn't see this. This is what the psychic was telling me. And as soon as she was done. She was done. She was done saying whatever it was she needed to say. And then she decided she wanted to walk through me, just to put an exclamation point on that, which was awesome.
That'll handle all that business after. I mean, the Ave Maria thing was probably like enough, but then to feel that, it's probably kind of a coup de grace. I mean, what does that feel like?
Merry Christmas to me.
When your past loved one, quote unquote, passes through you, or what does that feel like?
I'll tell you, she has been. I mention her a lot because she's just been involved so much, and I can't explain that. I don't know if it's just the type of person she was, or that she's found it. I also often tell people it's like, if you have two places and that you go to often, and you cut through a field or a forest or something, you have a worn path. It's almost easier for you to go, hey, I know the way, come with me. Like if I go and I sit with anybody that's, worth their salt in doing this, a psychic, a medium, and I know so many of them, I usually sit down and put a smile on my face and I go, well, I'd like to talk to my sister, see if she's doing okay. But, I know my mom's coming through first because she knows the path. I don't know how to explain that. Maybe she's just connected stronger. She's used to it. Maybe it's the type of energy she is, the frequency she's on. I can't explain that. But you're going to have spirits who know how to do this a little bit better. And she's been doing it for so long. She took a long time. I took a long time to find somebody. Many people will tell you there's a great guy named Bob Olson. And he used to be a detective. And I think when his father died, he started really looking into this. And his thing was to find a psychic, much like Houdini did. And he spent a lot of time after his mother died. He wanted to sit in front of psychics, and he wanted somebody to prove to him that it was her coming through. He spent an awful lot of time. And she died not far from me, by the way, in an old hotel right in Asbury Park, New Jersey. I didn't know that till just last year. But it's just so, many people do this, and they just want proof. And and I've seen it time in and time again where people will be sitting at a table and somebody will come through and say something as poignant as the Ave Maria, or, he says you were dancing and, whistling Dixie or something, dancing in a blue dress in your bedroom, a week ago. And they're going, tell me more. They want more and more and more and more. And it never seems to be enough even, I mean, how much more can you get? And at some point in time, we got to go, they're fine. They're going through their own thing. Native Americans, not every tribe and not, your indigenous peoples all around the world all have similar beliefs in your journey continues. This is just school. This is just whatever you want to call it. But when your spirit passes, it's continuing on into something, and these are your most basic. I mean, I don't care if you're talking about indigenous tribes in Peru or, Native American tribes or your First Nations people in Canada or Hindu or Japan or, wherever. And it seems so simplistic. And then we went and made it all complicated somehow, via religion or this or that or bureaucracy, whatever you want to call it. But to me, it just seems so simplistic. And, it's the most complicated, simplistic thing we've ever had to deal with. Yeah. And we all want to know what happens, And I think, even when I'd written in one of the chapters of my book, and I was trying to explain, because everybody says, well, you say, basically they asked me, well, you say a spirit that crossed, because I was explaining that I can hear those that have crossed, but I cannot hear those who are stuck here as a ghost. Spirits to me have crossed. This is just my definition. And ghosts are those who are here for whatever reason, whether they be stuck or chosen or free will, whatever's going on or confused. And I was trying to explain to somebody about that. And they said, well, what do you mean by crossed over? And I'm like, well, their energy changed and left their mortal body and went. And they said, well, what is the other side? And I'm like, I think it's as individual as the person you're talking about. And that's just my opinion. But, those that you talk to from the other side, I'll tell you what, my mom came one time about, I think it was the night before I went in the Army, right before I got on the bus to go to basic training. And I can tell you about that if you want, which will answer some of these questions. Mm-hmm. Had thought about her, and I mean thought about her. Of course, you think about your mom, it was briefly. I was probably 19. And I was sleeping on my sister-in-law's pull-out couch in her living room. And she had this very distinctive door. She had a nautical colonial, believe me, it sounds crazy, but it worked for her, theme going throughout her house, right? And she's in this historical society and stuff. So a lot of antiques and stuff going on. And she had this fishing net on this back door against glass. So when you open the door, the fishing net full of those Chinese glass floating balls and shells and stuff would bang against the glass. It was a very distinctive sound if you lived in that house. You could always tell when somebody was going out the door, it banged a certain way, and coming in, it banged a certain way. Now it's about, I guess, about 11:30 at night. Now it was dark, and I was reading or something. And my back was really toward that door, and I heard it open. And right away, my first thought was one of my nieces. I had 2 teenage nieces that were still in high school. And I think that, one of them wasn't in for curfew yet. And I was, kind of sat up and looked over the couch to kind of get ready to razz her for coming in. Like, man, you're going to get it. You're coming in after curfew, man. You like. And I fully expected to see her standing there. And I heard this door, and I sat up and I looked, and there's nobody there. And the door's not open. And I distinctly heard that door open. There was no mistaking that sound. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, well, maybe somebody just went out the back door. I remember thinking this, and I'm like, no, it makes a different sound. It made like this thunk, clank, clank. It's just different. And I'm like, what's going on here, And while I'm standing there sitting up, trying to figure out what's going on, staring at this door, all of a sudden I see this little, you hear this almost like somebody crackling a water bottle, an empty water bottle. Not quite so loud, but very much like that. And of course, back then we didn't even have water bottles, but I can compare it now. And you hear this crackling kind of sound. And then I see the sparkles. And the sparkles kind of get together, and they're kind of coming together in a little group, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting a little bigger, and it's getting a little more sparkly and a little bit brighter. And it's almost making like a light. And before you know it, there's my mom. And I'm telling you, there she is. Now, when she died, she got sick when I was 10. She died of cancer. By the time I had just turned 12, I think it was 3 days after my birthday, she passed. And I used to wake up and I'd see her sitting in my room. But she was, as I call it, still in her death state. She had not crossed over. She was still sick. She was still absolutely hunched over in pain. And to this day, I still think that the feeling, her intense pain when she came into that room, being an empath, is what woke me up more than anything else. Because I felt it, Now, when she came then, she would never stay and talk to me. She never said a word. In fact, half the time, if I woke up, she almost woke up startled and boom, she was gone. And I don't mean a twinkle out. I don't mean poof, nothing, just gone. And then she didn't, that only happened for about 6 months. She never said a word. And she never came back after that until this very night. So there she is standing in front of me. Now she looks like maybe prime in her 40s. Looks like she's not going out on the town, but going to work, dressed nice like she always used to go to work. Her hair is fixed. She got makeup on. And by gosh, if she doesn't look good and she doesn't look healthy. She's standing right in front of me, full on apparition. And I'm just like, like you say anything, you just kind of stare. I'm sure my mouth was hanging open. And she's smiling. And without moving her mouth, she speaks to me telepathically in her voice. And she says, "You're going to be fine. You're doing just fine." She repeated it twice. And she said, "You aren't going to see me for a while." And then she said, "But remember, I love you." And at that point in time, I blurted out because I was scared she's going to leave again and not get a chance to ask her anything. I mean, what do you say? You have all these questions until something happens and you can't think of a darn thing to say. And that's just the truth. And I said, "Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing okay?" Because I was going to the Army next day. And she said, and I never forgot it. She said, "I can't tell you that. You have to do it on your own. You're doing just fine. And I love you. Remember, I love you." And she just started to fade out, twinkled out, boom. And darn if I didn't hear that door open and close. Didn't see her, but I heard the door open and close and the door never moved. I cannot explain that, but it happened, and it happened just like that.
Oh my gosh. That is so cool. And also the dichotomy between how you would see her for that first 6 months versus how different she looked that second time around before you went to the Army.
Yes. And that's why I told you like that, because that is something I have seen several times, that it seems, and you can talk to many people who do this and many people have their own opinion, but if you boil down the core, it seems like if they are caught in their death state, and I see it quite a bit, they have all their earthly burdens with them. They might be going through the same pains. They might be going through everything else. But it seems that once they go and they spend some time, they work through all that. Or, I don't know what the right word is for it, but they change. It's like they get better, or they lose all that earthly stuff.
Right.
Probably some faster than others. I'm sure it all depends on the person, and I'm sure it depends on the timing, is all relative, but that's what seems to happen, because I've seen it before too, where we helped this woman. She was in a house, and she pretty much primarily stayed to the kitchen, and she wasn't repeating stuff over and over exactly like in a loop. She was an intelligent haunting, and she kept fixing dinner like her husband was going to come off the field at any time, and she had dinner ready, but it was different all the time. Like sometimes she'd be baking a pie, you'd smell pie, but the family that lived there would tell you it was different things. But she was kind of in an erratic state because time didn't mean anything to her. She was almost like a Groundhog Day, repeating the same day over and over again, but it wasn't the same type of day, if that makes sense. And doggone it, if her husband wasn't there, he kept coming back. Her husband had passed 20 years before. And he had crossed over, and he kept trying to come back to get her to listen to him. But she was so caught up in her stuff that she didn't even know he was there. So when all the mediums and psychics and everybody that was in there to help, we were trying to get, well, he's right here. We had to convince her, tell us some stuff only she would know. Tell him some stuff that talk to, whatever, to get her to snap out of this. And eventually, over a couple of times, because it's like little therapy, sometimes it takes more than once. But there's two ghosts that are in the same room. He's aware of her. She's not aware of him. Now, when she crossed, eventually we got her to cross. And darn if we didn't hear, like a couple of years later, that she had come back, not in the same house, but to somebody else. And she was all better. So same thing, so she didn't have that hurt. She had limped and she had a hip and she had some other problems and things like that. And it was obvious when she was stuck here. So there's multiple stories of that. And I'm sure if you look through and you've heard them too. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that's, especially in your mother's case, do you think it's tied into their level of acceptance as far as their passing goes? As far as how you're witnessing how they look and their condition?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I don't know. I really think it's as individual. I mean, if you've got somebody who, all right, here's another one. I don't know why this is coming to me, but I'm just going to say it. Maybe it makes sense later on. I've heard lots of people. I heard this psychic once. I almost call it. I had to check the date of the interview because I was fuming. I was going to call and tell her, you can't do that. And you know me, I'm a mouthy redhead. I'm a Jersey girl. I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna tell you can't say stuff like that, because this woman got on there and she said to the wide world that suicides do not cross over. And I said, man, that is a lie. That is the biggest lie I've ever heard, because that's just not true. That is not true. Somebody who's troubled, and, they might choose, such as a ghost, like you catch a lot of ghosts that have chose to stay. We've talked about jumpers in the past. They chose to stay. They're not stuck. You know what I mean? They wanted to stay because they were afraid to cross for whatever their own personal reasons are. Either there's people over there they don't want to see, or they don't want to be judged because of a religious, weight that's been put on them, and the fear and all, or they just like it. They like to be able to do what they're doing, and they're, whatever. Now, how long they have to do that, I don't know. I've heard, things like after a while, your energy starts getting a little erratic and you can really lose it. I don't know if that's individual too, but to get on there and tell people that, suicides don't cross, that's just wrong.
Was she on a big radio show doing this, like a coast to coast or something?
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
That's a very dangerous blanket statement to put out there.
No. They can't. You can't do that. And to say something like that, I'll be the first person to say, if you ask me a question, I don't know, but I can tell you, I know that because I just talked to one recently, and not only did he cross, but he came back to help people that were doing the same mistakes he was doing here. Now, whether he chose to do that because it's helpful, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if there are rules. I don't know if it's just an energy thing, or like, hey, I did that. Let me go back and try to help a couple people I know that might be getting ready to make that same mistake, and see if I can do something to stop them. How cool is that? But that's what he was doing.
Set this up for us, Sysco, because we were kind of laughing in the beginning how sometimes the host will kind of let somebody skip over something, and maybe it's something they should have covered. And I don't want to skip over this because it's fascinating to me. So set us up with this man, this young man that you said he kind of came to you, and he's touching base with you on things. So, were you just doing some laundry and you get this? What set us up on that? How does this work?
This young man, let's call him A. Okay. Only met him once briefly, and I couldn't have pointed him out at that time out of a group picture. You know, it was one of those things. I met him very briefly. And he knew some 20, probably in high school, he knew some people that I know that are in their 20s at the time. Okay. So I go in this group of my friends, and we happen to go to a psychic fair. And if nobody knows what a psychic fair is, it's not really a fair. It's basically you go in and you say, okay, I want to do it's usually $20 for 20 minutes, which is kind of cool. And I want to do a tarot card reading, and then sign me up with a psychic, and then sign me up with an astrologer. And that's $60. I'm going to do those 3 things. And then you get your name on a list and you wait for your time. So there might be 10 psychics and Reiki and all this stuff here. So there's all these different people, and they're all metaphysical, and they all do something different. And we're sitting in a group and we're waiting for our time. And I know some people there, and I'm doing a little vending and some other stuff. So I know quite a few of the people that are there. And one of these 20-something gentlemen were there at the time. And we're just standing there talking. And we were talking about a reading that they had just had. And I forget exactly what it was. I don't know if it was a tarot card, but it was a reading of some sort. And they were talking about it. And one of the ladies, one of the mediums, she didn't have a table that day, but she was in the group. She's standing there and she's talking, and there's probably 4 people standing in this circle talking, maybe 5. And she looks at this young man and she says, I have to stop for a second, because there's a young gentleman standing behind you. And he's been with you the whole day. And he really wants to tell you something. Do you mind if I tell you? And he looks at her and he says, no, sure. And she says, well, let me describe him. And she describes him. And the whole time she's describing him, you can tell by the look on this person's face that he knew exactly who she was describing. To a T. And he said, what's his name? And she says it. He said, that's him. She said, yes. He said, he passed about 7 years ago. Is that correct? He said, he thought about it. And he said, yes, that would be about right. He said, they were saying that he intended, because he was so depressed, to commit suicide. He did not intend. It was an accident. He wants you to tell his family. Also, he sees you and 4 other people that he spends most of his time with getting ready to make the same mistakes. So those things that you can't find that are missing all the time, that's him. He's messing you up. And he wants to tell you to stop it. And I thought this guy was going to pass out.
Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine?
I bet he was close to passing out, actually.
He says, you've got to be kidding me. And he just stood there and he went completely white-faced and tears started rolling down his face. And he said, I understand. So that's just one, that's just one. Now here he is helping some people that he knew that were going down whatever path he thought may have been dangerous or, detrimental to their well-being. And he was able to try to help in the way he could. And in a lot of ways, that's what spirits do, people that have crossed. And, some ghosts can do it too. But, when you look at the world of ghosts and spirits, Shannon, if you just think about it, if we just pull ourselves back away for a minute and go, okay, let's talk about regular human beings. I'm a regular human being. I can drive a car. Relatively good, got a great driving record. I'm not Mario Andretti or, one of these other guys, but I'm an all right driver. There are much better drivers than I, I can knock out, a couple songs on the piano, but I'm certainly not a concert pianist. I can burn cookies, just as good as anybody else. I'm not a great cook.
Right.
But just because I'm a human being and I have the capabilities of doing these things, you see what I mean? Doesn't mean that all human beings can do them. Right. So why do ghosts have to be any different? Why do spirits have to be any different? It's just a human being that's crossed or not crossed. It changed its energy. So of course, some are going to be able to do things that others can't do. So of course, some are going to fast track it and really like riding a wave. Hey man, this is awesome. And get through stuff faster. Some are going to be held back by their own stuff. It's just as individual as we are, but we tend to make it so complicated. Like all ghosts can do this. Some ghosts, I tell people, look, just because you've got glasses flying across your room doesn't mean you have a demon in your kitchen. It might be the only thing that ghost has learned to do, going through what they're doing to try to get attention. As silly as the movie Ghost was, there was a lot of truth in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick it apart, you see how long it took him to learn to run that penny up the wall. And for those of you who hadn't seen it, try to watch it with those kind of eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to push that penny up the wall. It took him so long to learn it. And he tried so hard to get messages to the girl, his girlfriend. And he'd got on that subway, and that one ghost that was on the subway and always created problems with trying to teach him to kick the can.
Yeah.
Saying it's exactly like that. Maybe we're on our own and we don't have anybody to show us what we can and can't do, especially if we're stuck, But I've seen, to put a blanket thing over all of it and say, ghosts can't do that, or they can't do that, or a person who has committed suicide can't cross over, is just, it's ludicrous.
What about, I said that tonight would be a more uplifting and light show, but here I go. I can't help but be me. I just want to see what you think about this. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What about the darker side? What about for the murderers and the child molesters and people that do some really horrific things that most of us, who burn cookies and we drive the car and we go to work and do the normal things. What about for those folks when they quote unquote cross over? Does that also mean then that they kind of make their own hell in a way? I mean, I know that hell is a very loaded word. I'm not just talking about pitchforks and fire, but whatever that might mean. Do you think that is maybe the same for those kind of people?
Okay. Now we're just getting my opinion and what I have come to believe. I am in no way an expert. I am in no way a theologian. Okay. But I can tell you this, what my personal belief is, that yes, it is as individual as the individual crossing. But there's got to be some rules somewhere. Yeah. And that goes for everybody, because you hear all the time, well, a dark entity can only do this. Well, where's this rule book at? There's obviously somewhere, we don't have, it's like getting some newfangled equipment, for Christmas. It didn't come with a rule book. Somewhere along the line, there are things that work and things that don't work. And then they don't always work. So why don't they always work? But as far as, it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I'm going to answer this as carefully as I possibly can, because no matter how I answer it, people are going to get angry, because I'm going to tell you this. Is it an inherent human quality for people? I think it's the way we handle things. If we see someone that is doing something that they shouldn't do, we're all fine with following the rules as long as everybody has to follow them. The minute that somebody steps out, the mob wants that person to pay, whether it be in the Old West, a hanging, and people used to come out and bring their children and watch the person hang. You know what I mean? See what happens when you do bad things? This is going to happen to you. It's no matter how you put it, we want to see that person pay for what they did wrong. So if you say someone who has gone out and murdered people, we want them caught. We want them locked up, of course, so they can't do it again. And then we say, to make ourselves be able to sleep at night, we say, well, there's a special hell for that person. And somehow that makes us feel better. Now, I'm not saying that I've never done that. I'm not saying it's, of course, a natural thing you would do, because you want to know that somewhere along the line there's a punishment for people that would be that cruel to another human being. Mm-hmm. Now, if we really look into ourselves, who's that really hurting? Is that hurting us? If you look back and I wish I could remember the name of the place, but there was a church shooting not long ago. I believe it's in North Carolina, not very long ago. Within minutes, those people that had cried over the people that they knew that got shot came out and say, I forgive this person. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. It was really the most beautiful thing I think I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. These people came out and said, we forgive him, we forgive him, we forgive him. And they asked one elderly lady who was not far from the shooting, why? She said, because it's not hurting him if I don't forgive him. It's hurting me. So, taking that into context, if we want to see these things happen to this person because it makes us feel better or safer or more secure, I don't know. That's kind of hurting us too, in a way, because we want to see that person punished. So that's one way to look at it. Two, when that person passes, who's judging them? Is there a God that stands there with a big book and says, you did this, this, and this, and oh, that thing you did in third grade, and this, and this. Is there really a book? Is there an archive of everything we've done? What if there is? I don't want to see mine. You know, I mean, I've not been a horrible person, but I guarantee you I've done some things I don't want to hear read back to me.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So is that hell? Is there really, I've heard people that have passed and had near-death experiences that do see a pit and the screaming and the yelling and stuff like that. Did they go through that because that's what they expected? And how is it that when people die in Japan or in Hindu, you know, you when you pass, you see people that are dressed the way you expect to come and greet you.
Right.
So is it one thing, or is it as individual as the individual? And is someone else judging us? Is it an elder, our higher selves, that part of us that's connected to our divine higher self, if you believe that? And then we judge ourselves. Are we the ones judging us? Was little A, who came back here, and I say little because he was a young guy, did he have a choice to look back at what he did and then have a choice to say, because he crossed and came back. He wasn't stuck here as a ghost. He chose to come back to help these other people. Was it something that he was offered by, I don't know, a panel of elders? Who knows? Higher spirits, aliens mixed with elders. We're so used to having to put a face on it, I guess, so we can picture it for ourselves, right, to take away some of the fear. But if they're offering that kind of thing, how bad can it be? If they could say, if you had a chance to go back and help other individuals that might be going down the same path you were, friends that you were just barely acquaintances with, these weren't, you know, bosom buddies. They were just acquaintances. But he thought enough of them to come back and go through all that trouble to help them out. Well, how bad could it be if we have the chance to do that? If I have the chance to go back and say, okay, if I could right some of my wrongs by going back and helping others, or going back or maybe helping here, who knows what those rules are, then how cool is that? And I've seen it, and I didn't imagine it. You know, I didn't know this kid. Like I said, I couldn't have picked him out of a group picture, you know, but I know I met him. And that's pretty cool. So if somebody does do a lot of hatred, say a Hitler, I can give you the answer I've been given by people wiser than me. It's going to take an eternity for him to go through all the pain that he caused and relive the pain that he put out there. His soul is going to have to go through a healing before he could ever get another chance to reincarnate or go or move on.
I love that you said that, and I wish that you could see my notes right now, because about, I don't know, 5 minutes ago, you brought up Hitler. And the reason I asked you, and I love your answer, I thought that's the answer that you might give, that I think it's the same, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's what you expect. And yeah. The reason I interrupted you, and I apologize, is because I wrote down it's another horrible movie that no one should ever recommend anyone watch. It's, like you said, what did you say, 15 minutes of funny wrapped in 2 hours of stupid or whatever you said. It's exactly spot on. But the movie Little Nicky, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Harvey Keitel plays the devil. And, of course, Hitler is in hell, and it's the quintessential hell with the fire and the flames and the cinder. The pineapple scene, yes. He grabs the pineapple, and once a day, Hitler comes down in front of the devil, and the devil kind of looks at the pineapple, but he turns it the opposite way so that the nice green pokey end goes up Hitler's bottom first. So that's kind of where I thought you were going to go with that, and that's spot on the answer. But that line that you said, that's what they expect. You know, maybe the person that is molesting children, which is one of the most deplorable things I think on this planet that you can ever do. You know, I hope that they do expect that they are going to a place very similar to what we saw in a Little Nicky or something like that. So, yeah.
And I think it's a natural thing for us. Like, again, I'm not, you know, I'm just me, you know, I mean, I've just been studying this a long time, and I tell people, you know, it's just like religion. If you take religion and you boil out all of the whatnot and you boil down to the core, you could just about take any kind of spiritualist movement, and you basically, your core is be good to yourself, be good to other people, take care of nature, and it'll take care of you. You know, love one another, treat others the way you want to be treated, and they don't have all this fear in it. Everything else just seems to be placed on by man. It's very Avatar, if you think about it. You know, we all are really connected. We all, my gosh, we've got DNA that's, you know, I don't know the percentage of it, but with an octopus, and I've heard lately a banana or some kind of crazy thing like that. I mean, we're all connected in some way or another, you know. And then if you bring in quantum physics, and you bring in different dimensions, and then you bring in other planets, and you bring in other galaxies, I mean, wow, it's overwhelming. But if you boil it down to just energy, and you've got higher vibrational energy, where it's like, you know, whatever you want to call it, your divine, your ultimate love, your all-knowing, you know, and I'm just saying vibrational. I'm not giving it a name. I'm saying the vibration. You either vibrate high or you vibrate low. And if you go out on a low vibration, you're going to come on to the other side on a low vibration. And whether you're given a chance to lift that because you seek help, or if you just stay there and vibrate on a low vibration for eons, I don't know. But it seems that you are going to have to, what's the word? There's going to be some comeuppance.
Yeah.
They used to put it back
I like
in
that
the
word.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and whatever word you want to put on that, I mean, if you really have to view your entire life, you know, I mean, come on, all of us, I mean, we're basically good people sitting here, and we try to take time from our own day, you know, to reach out and touch other people's hearts and say, you know, there's hope out there. There's, you know, there's more out there than meets the eye. And, you know, and coincidences aren't always coincidences. And, you know, love is, you know, is a great energy. It's the greatest energy ever, you know, as far as I'm concerned. And it lasts for a very long time. Yeah. We take time from our day just to do that, you know, and we're not bad people, but there are things in my life I don't want to see again. But if I've got to deal with them, I got to deal with them. You know, if I have to see that day I lost my, you know, my military bearing, let's say, and cursed out somebody, or was nasty to a waitress, or, you know, yelled at somebody in a car or something like that, and that caused them in a chain reaction, that caused them to do something, or they lost their stuff, or it's that if I've got to deal with that, what I caused, whether it's intentional or otherwise, then I have to do it, you know. But if these people are out there and they're hurting other people, and they have to go through that pain and feel what it felt like and everything else, isn't that hell? You know, whatever name you want to put on it, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, so that's why, you know, it would be personal. But then again, on the other side, if there's a yin, there's a yang. If there's a black, there's a white. If there's a good, there's a bad. And there's definitely, you know, if there's, you know, love, there's hate, you know, just like in everything, there's, you know, it's not even a balance. Sometimes it goes way on one side or the other. But, you know, if that's true, then the good stuff has got to be true too, right? if you go out on a higher vibration, and if all this stuff that people, are saying is, look, try to be the best person you can be. Try to, you can do it in a day. You can listen to really hard music or really this, and you can just read depressing stuff or watch a depressing movie and just feel sorry for yourself and just think of all kind of horrible stuff. You can bring your vibration down quick. And at the same time, you could flip all that around and listen to an uplifting thing or watch an uplifting story and go out in nature and just dance barefoot in the rain or something and raise your vibration. So if we can do that now, my gosh, what are we doing when we're out of these bodies?
I think that my personal hell would be having to go clothes shopping or shoe shopping. Like, I'm not a big mall person, and I don't like going clothes shopping and you got to try them on. It's a whole thing, and I'll wear things so they got holes in them because I can't stand going shopping.
And everybody's got. I can't even go to a mall as an empath.
Right? Because you and Steve suck that stuff in.
Yeah, the greed and the greed and the I don't know, the harriedness. I'm not good enough. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, I have to have these shoes. If I don't have these shoes, and I can't pay for them, and I'll just, and there's so much. I'd rather go to a funeral home than a mall. I can't explain it. I can't explain it. It's just a different energy. You think hospitals, I've spent a lot of time in hospitals lately, and I'll tell you, it's just draining. So draining, but it's not as bad as a mall. And I know that sounds nuts, but it's true.
And that's every time you go.
Yeah, I won't go. I haven't been in a mall in 8 years. I won't go back. It drains me so much. I guess I'm just so open at this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Well, we have different reasons, I guess, but
yeah. And I don't need to shop moccasins. I wear moccasins; they wear forever, right?
Oh my gosh, maybe that's what I just need to get. So I don't have any holes in my shoe. I just had to throw out 2 pairs of sneakers because they were very holy. They were holy. So
yeah. I just got me some brand new hot kicks, boy. I got me a pair of Converse high top All Star black.
Go
honey.
Sysco! Oh, all black.
All black.
I love the Chucks.
Yes.
And the high tops. See, I've always gotten the low rise, but I need to get the high tops. I bet those are fantastic.
Oh, they're fantastic. I'm a 55-year-old granny running around in brand new kicks.
Because you're bad at the bone, Sysco. Come on now. You already know. You have to have the kicks to match you. That's incredible. And the black. I love you.
In the black, absolutely.
Yeah.
I started buying all black stuff a long time ago, and it has nothing to do with this, that, or the other thing. People say, do you wear that because it keeps you, because there's a lot about color, and I don't know if you ever gotten into that, but if you ever did, you need to look into that because it's so true. Where they say that, all the different, there's certain grocery stores, like Target will use a lot of red because it makes you want to spend money and makes you hungry. So you buy, and spend. Colors do all kinds of things.
That's what it is. That's why I go into Target and just drop $200 just without even blinking an eye.
Covers of horror books, mostly black and purple.
Yeah.
Number one sellers. There's a lot to cover, but black just keeps me calm. And a lot of people choose it because it's the absence of, everything, and this other stuff. I just wear it because when I buy something black, it's going to match black. I'm tired of trying to get color. Blue with this blue. No, I'm done. Black goes with black. I'm done.
I'm tired. I'm recording in my upstairs, aka studio, known as the closet, because I'm not, when I'm home alone, I can go down in the office, and it's a little more echoey, but it's not in the hot closet, but it's fine. But I'm in the closet and I'm looking around. I'm like, yep, pretty much all black clothes. So I'm in the same boat as you.
It just, as long as you don't wash it out, and if you got a lot of black clothes, I highly recommend getting that Woolite black board because it keeps them that black.
Oh my gosh! Yep, there's another plug for another company because they are actually incredible. It's completely different.
Yep, it works. It absolutely works. So, I feel bad because a lot of people want that answer if is a heaven or hell, and I gotta say, man, I think it's what you make it. And I think you can create your own hell right here if you want to. So, the best advice I can give is just try to do right, be uplifting, be kind to yourself, and try to like shake off all those feelings of, I was just talking to somebody else not too long ago, and we were talking about, be kind to others and, all your typical stuff, and forgive others, and it feels good if you can do that. Like we talked about the people in the church and stuff, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. That's some wild stuff to be able to do that. And I just wanted to hug every single one of those people,
Yeah.
And, I really did. That's powerful.
What do you do, Sysco? I mean, if you're, especially you being, a sensitive person, what do you do if you're kind of having a bad day? And I know you're going through a lot and, with your son and everything. Yeah. And if you're having kind of a low day, what do you do to pick yourself up?
Watch a lot of Netflix.
Can't beat it.
That's funny, right?
Yeah.
God bless the YouTube. I gotta say, God bless the YouTube, because in 2 seconds you can pick up. I'll pick up an Eddie Izzard or something like that, and I'll watch 20, 30 minutes of him talking about, fruit or the history of the world or something like that, and I just laugh. Laughter is the quickest thing to bring up your mood. If you can do it, even if you're going through a dark time and something like that, we've got a lot of, electronics now at our hand. And that little phone or whatever, you can pull up something, change your mood like that. I do a lot of meditation. I'll do, a quick 7, 10, 15-minute grounding meditation, I call it a soul scrub. You just get all that negativity off you.
Soul scrub. That's soul an incredible little title right there. Yeah.
That's how I'll do it. I've been at work and I've gone to the bathroom. I've shut the door and I've put that meditation on and I've just stayed in that stall. And I'm like, I'm not coming out till my soul cleans. I cannot deal with these people no more. But you go out, you sing a little ditty, you tell a couple silly jokes and you just really lift your vibration. I promise you it works. If you're going to feel in a sad mood, if you think about it, when you're depressed, and who can't get depressed in a minute when you look around, you see stuff. I won't watch the news. I don't care.
I don't either.
I open the door. It's cold. I put on a coat. I don't need the weatherman to tell me. Yeah. I mean, I'm serious about that. I've had people call me up and go, are you going, you got enough canned food? I'm like, for what? They said, well, there's a hurricane coming. You got to be kidding me. Hurricane? What do you mean? What kind of hurricane? And it was Sandy. I'm like, I had no idea.
You're like, I'll figure it out. I'm good.
I mean, are you joking me? Because the news, the first 10 minutes of the news will absolutely bring down, like we've got animals start going, oh my God, everybody's picking up this vibration. It's fear, 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 fear. So watch a few minutes of a high-end comedian, not one that's getting down and dirty and talking about all this stuff. So just a light lifted kind of thing, whatever makes you laugh, and laughter, and, just be nice. And if you can't find something nice to do for yourself, go do it for somebody else. But I'll tell you, nothing lifts you more than knocking on a neighbor's door and go, here, have some cookies, or here's your paper. How you doing today? Just try to be cool, and your vibration will lift up, and you try not to go hang out in places that make you feel low. I mean, everybody's got to go to that job, but if you can go out and eat your lunch outside and listen to birds. When I was at the hospital, every morning I would go out. I would save half of my, I know this sounds crazy. I would save half of my little sausage biscuit I'd have every morning and take my coffee outside and I'd go sit on the wall and I'd feed the birds that lived in this tree, and they would come down and sing. And by the time my 20 minutes was over, I got a little bit more energy to go back and do the next thing. Yeah. And it sounds so silly, but man, you can do it, and it really does make you feel better when you can do something like that. There's a lot to grounding. I mean, everybody listening should look up just basic grounding, taking off your shoes and walking in the ground. If it's cold outside and you can't do that, just do it in your, try to do it in your own living room. What was that movie? Was it
Pretty Woman?
Yeah, where you making fists with your toes and walking around, the floor, just get your, get your feet off. Do an Epsom salt, soak your feet in Epsom salts. Get some of the toxins out of you, Do something nice for yourself. Light a candle, listen to some good music, pet a cat, hug a dog. These are all simple things. But when was the last time you did any of those and didn't feel better?
You were talking about birds, and this makes me sound very kind of silly and immature, but the other day I was on YouTube, and because I have a cockatiel now, and
bless him.
And it's an incredible bird. I think it's a female because I just do. And the males, boys are boys and they need to show off a little more, so they're a little bit more vocal. So I think it might be female.
Like the bird world.
Yeah,
they
got to be all the bright colors, and they have to talk and whistle. And anyhow, I looked up on YouTube parrots. And the cockatiel is actually a parrot, everyone. It's an Australian parrot. They fly wild in Australia. They are from Australia. So anyhow, I looked up parrots cursing. And that makes me sound like such a child. I know. But tears were streaming down my face at some of these African greys.
Yeah.
And the galahs and the cockatoos. Oh my gosh. You should just type in umbrella cockatoo, like cussing somebody out. And it wasn't really, not all of them are literal cuss words. The cockatoo is just kind of like, if you would imagine someone with it's really ticked off with a little bit of sass added in, telling somebody off. That's what this bird looked like. I'm like, do you know you're a bird and not a human being? Yeah. It was the funniest thing. So,
yeah. Well, don't ever try to tell me that animals don't have. Oh gosh, I'm a huge animal person. Boy. I used to work for both large animal pet shop chains. I worked for both of them, and I had to not, because I brought home every animal I ran an animal rescue when I was in Alabama. I took home all the unwanted, like I had a blind fish named Crash, because they told me that he couldn't live, and I brought him home and put him in a 100-gallon tank, and that was the happiest fish you ever saw. I had cooked home all the canaries that couldn't sing, and the one-legged finches, and the hamsters that couldn't get along. They stand on
one leg anyway. I mean, my cockatiel, when he's tired, one leg pops up. He's good to go. So they don't need two legs.
Everyone.
Anyway.
They all have a personality, and I just see that's what I'm bucking for.
Yeah.
If we have a job, I want to go where the animals are, and I want to help take care of them and chill them out. And just if anybody ever asks me, like, if you had a choice when we go, if we have jobs to do or things to do and stuff like that, just think about it in the what if department. That's where I want to be. Put me with the animals. I'll take care of them and hug them and love them and pet cats and help them get adjusted. Yep.
I have a zoo, and I'm cleaning constantly because there's just urine and poo everywhere and just slobber and boogers and everything. I'm like happy as a clam. I'm like, I don't even care.
Yep.
You know what just came to me?
Been there, done that.
The fist with the toes. I was thinking of Richard Gere walking in the grass. Remember that? When he's like, he's just all of a sudden she said something about relaxing, but that's not it. You were referencing Die Hard.
Die Hard, thank you.
Right?
That's it. Making fists with your toes in the rug. Yep, that was it.
I remember that scene now. Oh my God, thank you. Okay. Here's something funny. Another thing. God, we're referencing a lot of movies, but I love it. This is what I do. The one holiday movie that I always watch is Scrooged with Bill Murray. It's one of my favorites.
Just watched it last night.
I didn't watch it this year. It just didn't happen. I don't know. Yeah. But I did watch Die Hard. Yet. It is. It's not even New Year's yet. Yes.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Still not staying out till midnight. I'm too ready for bed at 8:30.
Sure, it's on Netflix.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But yeah, like Die Hard is totally a Christmas movie. For anyone that disagrees, you better knock it off right now. That is completely a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
Love that show. He's like, now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Good old Alan Rickman with that. He was trying to have that heavy accent, right?
I love him.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe he's gone. All the good ones are going.
I know. Man. What's that one he did where he was a hairdresser and he had the pair of scissors tattooed on the bottom of his foot?
I don't know.
If you have familiar it, you should see it. Alan Rickman was a hairdresser, and he was in that fancy, the 1 year hairdresser hair off or whatever you call it. He was fantastic. And when he was in his zone, He did it barefoot. He would pop that one foot up with the scissors on the tattooed on the bottom of his foot. If you like him, you will love that movie. I don't know. Just Google scissors tattoo Alan Rickman. You'll find it.
Made a note because I don't think I've even heard anyone reference that. Oh,
fantastic flick.
Love
it's old.
Alan Rickman.
It's got to be 80s, 90s, but it's a good one. You know, I fell in love with him right then. I have some hard crushes. Gary Oldman's another one. Him and Dracula. Oh my God. Girl.
That's one of the top 10 movies of all time for me is Bram Stoker's Dracula. If that's ever, if I'm like, I just need something kind of on in the background, that'll go on.
I'd have been one redheaded immortal son of a bitch. I could not have said no to Gary Oldman.
Here you go. Here's the neck. Go ahead. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. There was something about him. But yeah, we digress.
We always do, but I love it.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
well, movies and TV shows are a good reflection of either who we want to be or who we don't want to be, or a life that we want or we don't want, or maybe we can, that's why I think I'm always referencing stuff like that. But,
well, I'm always interested in movies that get it right, because a lot of times, people need a visual to kind of get an idea. Yeah. Not everybody has that. It's why I really, really, I totally believe in video killed the radio star, because back when you could listen to music, you put your own thoughts to that song. And, still when I hear, and I'm not even like a lot of people diehard Beatles fan, but my God, when I hear Let It Be, I am, 10 years old, barefoot, walking down the boardwalk, Belmar, New Jersey. And, I'm back there. It's a sunny day, transistor radio. The way music and movies take you to a place, that's why I mentioned, the time of their lives, Abbott and Costello. If you want to know a little bit of what it's like, and even in that movie got to the way the living humans, reacted to the ghosts and what they were doing. And the psychic actually that was running the seances and stuff, she had it right. And this is going way back. And I often think, and I listen to a lot of these shows, and especially some of the ones, and I won't even talk about, some of the larger radio shows and stuff.
That's
and I listen to that announcer, and I'm like, have you not been listening for 20 years? You've been interviewing these people,
right? And not processing anything.
Asking the same question, and you're not even asking it like you're asking that person's opinion on what they think here, but you're acting like you never talked about this before. It's mind-boggling to me. So I try to offer things like that. I just saw another one, digging through. Like I said, I was digging up a lot of old stuff. And one called The Holiday. This thing was made in, gosh, man, if it was cracked the 30s, I'd be surprised. I mean, it was old. Totally worth it. You can pull it up on YouTube. And it's the gentleman was three rich guys, real uppity rich guys, and they had nothing to do on Christmas Eve but stand around, smoke their cigars, and by the fire and drink their brandy, that kind of thing. And they made some kind of bet, and I won't tell you what the bet was because it was so cute the way they did it. But they wanted to see that there was decent human beings still left on this earth, and they all had a bet that there wasn't, and they were kind of proven wrong because there was a couple left, and they wanted to invite them to Christmas dinner, which was kind of cool because they had this big table and a lot of food. Nobody showed up and wanted to bring in strangers, and it all worked out really good. Well, along the line, somebody in the cast there passed, and the way they handled that, man, did they have it right. They have it right. Everything that I've seen, and like I keep saying, I'm not an expert, but I've seen some stuff, and I kept my eyes open and I paid attention. And they had it right. And they had it right back then. So here we are in 2017. And we've got all these people that are still trying to make it so doggone complicated.
Yeah.
If you look back, there's always been ghosts. There's, you want to go back to the Bible. They're in the Bible. They're in the Book of Mormon. They're in, every book, that's ever supposed to be based on things, yet we keep questioning things. We keep questioning the fact that there's aliens. Are you kidding me? They're here. They've been here. They've probably been intermingling us for so long, it's not even funny, Bigfoot this, just because we don't have something in front of us and we can't poke and prod it and put it in a cage, does that mean it doesn't exist? So like I said, you want to put things in a file cabinet, you want to put a label on it, and that's fine. But you're missing the miracles that happen every day. You're talking yourself out of it, and then you turn around and you go, where are all the miracles? They're right in front of you. They happen all the time, It's like I was talking to a lady the other day. She goes, oh, I so wish that I miss my dad, and God bless her. She's really, really hurting. And she said he really liked cardinals. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and oftentimes we hear that, an angel can send you a calling card, let's say, like angel numbers or a feather or pennies from heaven, money and stuff like that. Things that keep repeating through eons of time here. We're not just talking something that's been happening in the last year. You can go way, way back and read stories that people were happening in the 1800s, the 1700s. Ever since somebody's putting stuff down, things like this were happening. I got a sign or whatever you want to call it. So she says she was really missing her dad. And, she said, oh, I just wish I could know that he was okay. And, talking to a friend on the phone or whatever. And she goes out to her car, and there's a cardinal sitting on her side view mirror of her car. As she goes to get into her car, she said, do you think that my dad sent that cardinal? And I said, do you? She said, yeah, I do. I said, then why can't you believe that? She goes, I don't really know. And I'm like, what do you need, lady? A rock to hit you in the head?
Right. She had to ask you, well, what do you think? You're like, no. What do you think? Because obviously there's a tie-in here.
Can I prove it? No. But honey, you were just talking on the phone with your friend. You said you missed your dad. You were saying that he really liked cardinals because you were talking about Christmas, whatever it was that the conversation was.
Yeah.
And she goes out, there's a cardinal sitting on her, I want to say rear view mirror, but that's not it. The side view mirror of her car, on her side of her car as she's getting into her car.
Yeah.
She stands there, and instead of flying away, it stayed there for a minute.
Oh.
Now you tell me.
And she's still asking you, well, what do you think? Is that a sign? You're like, really?
Said,
you probably want to go, really?
I can't confirm it for you any more than...
Yeah. Slap across the face.
I usually say to people, at that moment in time, what did you feel in my heart? She said, I felt like he touched me. And I said, then stay there.
Right.
Stay there. Why talk yourself out of it?
Yeah, what's the harm in believing that he sent that as a sign?
Right. So, and I've had people that's had even, a whole lot more than that, like I said earlier, and they just need more and more and more and more. And, a lot of times people don't understand too, that you kind of, if you go into this with an open heart, like say you're going to a reading, here's a little advice. You go into a reading, and if you think about it, you got a legit medium, and be careful people, because there's a lot out there that, we all know that.
Yeah.
But if you've got one, and there's plenty of ways to find them now, you really can. I mean, you can look on reviews, and you can do, don't just read the first 5, get down in there, do your research. My God, you wouldn't let any plumber in your house. So just spend a little time and just sit there and keep your mouth shut and listen. Mm-hmm. Don't nod, don't blink, don't do anything. Just listen and open yourself up to it and see what you get, and jot things down, and then go back. And when you're calm, go back over it and see if little things don't start falling into place, because they probably are going to, but you're so caught up and you're so jazzed up for this that your emotions run high and you block a lot of stuff, Right. So, and then, if you can, wait a little while and go back. And, I find people that lose somebody and they want to go the first week, and they want to go, come on, man, you're still all caught up in grief, and nobody can tell you how long you need to grieve. Grief is a personal process. And everybody takes time to go through that grief or whatever. My best advice for that is somebody who's had to grieve most of her life. I've lost a lot of loved ones, a lot of very close people. So I'm speaking from experience here. It's best for them and best for you if you think about happy times as well. Yeah. If you can think about, my God, remember, and talk to them like you're standing right there, Tell them, you remember that time we got that ice cream and it fell all down. We laughed, we danced, we did this, we did that. Try to think of higher vibrational things, because it's going to, even if it's not getting anywhere else, it's going to help you. And you're going to remember that the good essence of that person, and you're going to remember, and if you need to cry, you need to do this, you need to do that, do it, but try to remember the happy stuff too, because it's not doing them or you any good, to stay low, try to stay high. And it takes a time. Everybody's got to go through their own thing, their own way. And anybody that would benefit and take advantage of that, that's a no-no. Nobody should be, taking advantage of your grief. So if you feel like somebody's doing that, you back away, you get out of there quick, and you go to somebody who's going to tell you the same thing I just did, but know that your love for that person is just as alive in you. And if it's alive in you, the chances are it's just as alive in them too. And just like I had that Ave Maria moment. Now keep in mind, my mama passed in 1976. And if she can do that, okay, your loved ones might very well be sending you a cardinal or a butterfly or something else too. And you might be blocking it. You might very well be getting something very subtle, like we talked about in Ghost. They might just be able to send you a message through a song, or, a silly, anything else. It could be a song when you walk into a store, and if you feel it, that's the first initial thing you take, is your intuition. If you were thinking about that person and you walked in there, or you turned on your car radio and there's that song, or, it might not have been their song, but the words coming through that might be something, I'm right here with you, and you look at that and you go, well, I'm not sure. You know what? Like I said, if you're on the fence, what's it going to hurt to swing your feet over and lean toward the side of positive? Because it's going to make you feel better. And if it is a message from them, it's going to make them feel better too. And just say, I love you. Thank you for the message. Because if it is, you just gave them a message that you got that message. And if it isn't, who you hurting? You're going to feel better. So just try to think about it that way, because I see more people talk themselves out of these little miracles. I was sitting with my partner now, one of the best men. Took me 50 years to find him, but one of the best men I've ever met in my life. And I had been through an awful lot of stuff, and let's just take my word for it. And we're sitting. I'd taken him to the boardwalk one day, and we'd been dating for a little bit. And, both musicians. We'd been out singing together. We knew each other a little bit. And he sits down next to me on the bench, and he starts telling me his heart. And I'm looking out into the ocean. Now, keep in mind, we're on the boardwalk. It's cold. It's Easter, but it was one of those early Easter. So it was like the back end of March, cold. It's doggone cold. And there's the beach in front of me, the sand, and of course the water. Behind me is the rest of the boardwalk. There's a road. Then there's a sidewalk. Then there's a row of stores. And then behind that, you might start getting a couple of houses, but you're not getting too many flowers in March in New Jersey, I assure you. Now, one of my mom's things has always been a monarch butterfly. Now, people ask me, is your mom the butterfly? No, she didn't turn into a butterfly and but there are throughout history many things that you can, look up on your own. Things being like cardinals and robins, dragonflies, butterflies is another. That seem, I don't know. You'd have to find somebody wiser than to explain it, but maybe there's a vibrational thing there. Maybe it's something that they can manipulate easily. Maybe it's something that they can, I don't know. I can't explain it. Wish I could. Can't do it. But throughout time, these things, you'll read stories about it. So one of my mom's things has always been a monarch butterfly. So here we are sitting here on the beach on a very windy day. I can remember I had a shawl around my, head because my hair was whipping all over the place. So I had to put my shawl over my head so my hair would stop whipping everywhere. I looked like a crazy woman sitting on the boardwalk, right? So it's extremely windy. He's telling me his heart, and basically, without getting into detail, he's saying, I don't have a lot to offer you, but what I have to offer you is a full heart. I'm a good man. I'm this, I'm that. And, he was talking that kind of stuff. And inside of me, because I had been through so much stuff, I'm sitting there, God, I want to believe this. You know what I mean? I really want to believe what he's saying to me because I want this to be true, because I just can't do this again. I'd rather be alone, And right in front of me on the pole, the railing for the boardwalk, right smack in between us, right in front of me, a foot away from me, lands a monarch butterfly. And I look at the butterfly, and it's struggling to stay on that pole because the wind was so strong, its poor little wings, And I looked at him, and this is how I've gotten over the years. I looked at him, I said, you can go. I got the message, little guy. I looked at him, I go, okay, you got your chance. Here we go. And he says, that quick, huh? And I said, no, it wasn't me. It was a butterfly. And he just looked at me and smiled. He goes, what do you mean by that? And I said, if you stick with me, you're going to find out.
Yeah, you're going to learn. You'll learn, honey.
So you tell me, not a flower in sight in March.
Unreal, dude. Oh my gosh.
What are the chances that a butterfly is just going to fly like that? So when things like that happen, people grasp them with your whole heart, because there's miracles all around us. There really is. Have you ever heard the feathers? The white feathers, the gossamer feathers. There's so many stories and stuff like that. Maybe your readers would be interested in this. Said we're going to talk a little bit about angels. Here's something interesting. First of all, for those of you who don't want to, it's not your taste to get, into the religious part of things, and that's not your cup of tea. Keep in mind, angels aren't religious. They're here for any and all. That's books. And that, I hate to tell you this, but sometimes man put what they want in there, try to get what get you to act the way they want. So angels don't belong to any in one group. Angels are for everybody. So just know that, and that I can tell you that I know. Okay, and they're not as hung up on things as people think. So I talk to mine all the time, and we all have them. They're out there, and there's lots of different, just like we said in the beginning of this, are there fairies? Why not? Are the leprechauns? I don't know. I'm not going to say they're not. So how can anybody say there aren't angels? I've seen them. I've seen them in multiple different ways. I think they come in any and all sizes. If Steve was here tonight, he could tell you some fantastic stories about ones that he pretty doggone sure were angels. Sometimes people say they're spirit guides, and some people say they're loved ones that are coming, okay, I'll take all of that. I'm not really that hung up on the label part, but when somebody stands in front of you and you have that overwhelming feeling of pure love and just goodness, I cannot explain it to you. It's the difference from leaving outside on a bitterly cold day and walking in and all of a sudden standing in front of a fire. It's a warmth, and it's a light and a lifting and a vibration that I cannot explain in words. But when I stand in front of something like that, or something like that stands in front of me, I can tell you it's real, because I've had the opposite in front of me too. And I can tell you that that's real. So if you're asking me if I believe in angels, with my whole heart, I do. And people often get bogged down with the same things that they start getting bogged down with, unfortunately, religion, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
It's more of, and again, just my opinion, but and my experience, but it's more of, it's love. And we have free will. So they'll say, okay, if I have a guardian angel, why did I hit that tree? Honey, because you were supposed to hit the tree. You know, a guardian angel isn't going to stop you from doing bad things to yourself. It's going to try to talk you out of it. It's going to try to give you every chance. But if you're free will, it's going to override. Do you understand? If you're supposed to do something because you have to learn from that, bam, you're going to hit the tree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your free will. We've got to stop blaming everything on our we make choices. We made choices to drink and get in a car, or we made choices to get in a fight. We made choices to whatever it was. That's your responsibility. But angels can be there to guide. And I do believe I've been through something here lately, and I don't mind telling you. My son was in a horrible car accident. I got a call at 2 a.m. in the morning. He was in another state. I was told that he was okay. He had a few bumps and bruises, but I should probably get there if I could. And I know enough about that to get on a fast plane.
That's what they told you? That
Yeah.
He had a few bumps and bruises?
A couple broken ribs, and he should be just fine.
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry that they said that. I didn't know.
Well, fortunately, I have a couple of abilities that I picked up on the energy of the person I was talking to in the room, who was a nurse.
Yeah.
And as wonderful as that person was, I got lie. I got on.
Gosh.
I knew it was bad. So I got on a plane. I was there within probably 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. It was quite a few ways. It was way away. When I got there, he had a 15% chance of making it. 15% chance. And he was pretty much crushed all the way down his left side with multiple trauma. And, you do what you got to, you're in there and you start, I'm a soldier. You soldier up and I'm a mom. So I put on whatever hat I had to have on at the time. And I planted and stayed right there. And when I got a chance, I got out there and I started putting the feelers out there. You better believe I asked for every prayer I could get my hands on, in every religion, in every country that I could reach out to. There was so many people in so many languages and so many different spiritual. There was Wicca, there was pagans, there was Catholics, there was, you name it. There was no labels when it came to good energy being sent towards this young man. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful. And I called my niece, who is very much like me. And that girl got in a car and drove over 1,800 miles nonstop to stand by my side. And I said, I need another hand. And when she got there, I brought her in and we stood over him and we pulled every bit of that energy that was being sent out there in his name. And I said, put it right here. And we stood over him for at least an hour. And we just brought it all in, put it right here. The next day, they pulled the tube out of his chest and said he shot up at least 50%.
Oh.
Now, you tell me.
15 and then add another 50. Right?
And that's in the medical files.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So was it me? Nope. Was it him? Nope. It was the intestinal fortitude of somebody who wanted to live. Mm-hmm. And it was good energy sent by, I would say, thousands. I would easily say thousands of people. So just like in the beginning of It's a Wonderful Life, when you hear all those little voices talking and praying for George, George is a good man. Please help him. Please help him. All those people are sending out good energy in the name of that person. And yes, it works. You can call it prayer. You can call it good energy. You can call it white light. You call it whatever you need to call it. But it's real. It's real. And here's another one. If you want to believe in angels, I sent you a picture on Skype. You're welcome to use it. It took about 3 days for him to come out of a little bit in and out of consciousness, where he could kind of squeeze my hand a little bit and open one eye just a little bit and look at me. and you have to leave. Anybody that's ever had anybody in ICU, I'm shaking all over when I tell you this because it's powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. And he was in ICU almost 3 weeks, maybe a little over 3 weeks. So this is about the 4th day. And he could kind of get a little bit about what I was saying. And I never shut up when I was there. I got a book and I read constantly so he could hear my voice. He was either singing to him or I was talking to him because he was going to know somebody was there to keep calling him back. And I highly suggest everybody do that. If you've got somebody that's, even if they tell you they're on so many drugs they can't hear you, you don't listen to that and you read to them, you talk to them, they can hear you. So he came out of it and I said, listen, you got to leave between 6 and 8 shift change, morning and night. And I always stayed till they threw me out so I could get every minute I could. And I said, listen, I said, I have to leave for a few minutes, but I'm not leaving the building. I will not leave you. And I promise I will be back. Do you understand that? And he winked his eye. He squeezed my hand. And I said, I'm not leaving you alone, though, because I can guarantee you your Grandma Peggy's standing right here. And pretty doggone sure, your Aunt Lynn's standing right here because I can feel them. And I said, so I'm not leaving you alone. Do you understand that? And he squeezed my hand. He winked. And he kind of tried to smile a little bit. God bless him. His mouth was all wired shut and everything, but he tried to smile a little bit. I saw a little twinkle there, so he knew where I was going. And I said, and I'm pretty sure you're surrounded by a bunch of angels because I've called in all the big guns. And he kind of squeezed my hand. And I said, do you believe that? And he squeezed my hand. He smiled. And I said, okay, so I'm not leaving you alone. I said, and I'll be right back. And I said, I guarantee you've got dozens of angels stand here, but I can bet your guardian angels, at least 2 of them, are sitting in a bar somewhere in Jamaica having a well-earned cocktail with their hand in their head going, oh, that boy. Because you really put them through some stuff. And he tried to laugh a little bit and smile, and he twinkled his eye. And I said, but they're here, and I'll be right back, and I love you. And he squeezed my hand, and I had to leave the room, and I went downstairs, and I went outside. You have to go up. I went outside to make my phone calls because phones wouldn't work in there to close the elevators. Now, there was a lot of loved ones who couldn't come and be there because, again, it's 6, 8 states away from a lot of these people. And I tried to take pictures of it was a beautiful fountain outside, and I wanted to know it was in a real pretty place, and the beautiful crepe myrtle trees blooming out front, and the beautiful water fountain, and stuff. It was just real pretty. And I wouldn't leave long. I would go stand right underneath his window, so I couldn't be too far away. I had to keep that energy going. I wouldn't let it go. And for one of his loved ones, I was taking some pictures, and I took a picture of his window. And if you get it real close, you could kind of sort of see inside a little bit, but I would never take a picture of him. I wouldn't do that to him. That's as close as those people were going to get, unfortunately. So I went to take a picture, and I went to zoom in, and I dropped something out of my hand. I was carrying some change. I had just been in a vending machine, and I dropped a nickel and a dime is all I had in my hand. I dropped that, and I bent over to pick it up. And that's right when I had taken the zoom in picture of the window. And when I bent over, something cold hit me in the back and went down my shirt. And I honestly thought it was a crepe myrtle flower because they were blooming and, they get wet and it felt cold like that. And I shook my shirt, and darn if a quarter didn't fall out of the back of my shirt. And I think, what's a quarter doing in there? That's crazy. And I looked down at my feet and I see it. And I stopped for a second before I picked it up. And I looked up. And there's nothing above me. I wasn't standing that close underneath the crepe myrtle tree. It was not above me. It couldn't have, I'm like, what in the world? Nothing but sky. Nothing but wide open sky. There wasn't a building. It couldn't have fallen out of a helicopter or a plane. I'd been dead.
Right. Yeah.
So I looked back down at my feet and I said, if this is his birthday, I said, okay, guys, and again, I just say this stuff out loud. Who cares? And I said, okay, guys, if this is his birthday, I'm going to faint dead away, and you're going to have to put 911 in here for me. And I just kind of laughed a little, and I reached out and picked it up, and it wasn't his birthday. It was 3 years away. It was 1993, and his is 1990. And I looked at it, and I said, and it was cold. So if it had been stuck Like, let's be honest, if it was stuck in, my underclothes or something like that or whatever, it would have been warm, right?
Right.
It's ice cold, ice cold. And I looked at it and I said, 1993. And I went, wow, that's close enough, guys. Thank you. I get the message. Very cool. Because I had just been talking about angels, right? Not 15 minutes earlier. Stuck it in the little pocket of my jeans and toddled on up the stairs to go back to ICU waiting room so I could get back in. And I'm sitting in the chair. And I'm zooming through these pictures so I can send a messenger to the person I was sending them to. And I look, and there's the hospital, there's the window, there's a close-up of the what? And there, in the second zoom picture, just when I had dropped and bent over and got hit in the back with the quarter, the picture that I took was a close-up of a beautiful angel. Unmistakable. Big, white, bright light. Just the whole window is lit up. There's no light glare. There was no sun going down. There was no street lights. It was daytime. An angel. Now you tell me.
Yeah, and I have that picture, and I will say that that's like bright light, like you said. Cannot be a street light reflecting or anything like that. And I'm sure with what you do and the things that you feel and the things you've seen, you can easily deduct very quickly, and you want to find out if it's something very mundane. And we all try to do that with our brains. And you could not deduce what else that may have been.
Mm-hmm. Right at that time, and a quarter hits in your back 3 days away from 3 years away from his birth date. Like maybe they were in a hurry and couldn't find 1990. I'll give him that. It's all right. It's close enough. Now, if that wasn't enough, now, again, not 15 minutes, maybe 13 minutes before, we had just been talking about how he was surrounded by angels. Right. So you put all that together. Right. You're not really reaching. Now, he was in that ICU probably another week. And anybody that's ever been in the hospital knows that every time you get medicine and the nurse comes in, what's your name? What's your birth date? Mm-hmm. And he had a real hard time talking because his jaw was wired shut. And God bless him, he was in a lot of pain. And and every time for the next 3 weeks, probably, I'm going to say easily 6, 7, 8 times a day, he got his birth date wrong every time. But by God, if he didn't get it right, and he'd say 1993. And I'd look at him and smile. And I'm like, no, honey, 1990. But that's okay. I know why you're saying that.
He would say 1993, like the quarter.
And I never told him the story till after he got out.
Oh,
so you
my
tell me.
Gosh.
You tell me.
What in the world? First of all, Sysco, thanks for telling all that. I've known kind of what's been going on, of course, with your son, but I didn't know all the details and the ins and out, and I never wanted to prod you for that story because I know those are painful to retell. So
I want
first of all, thanks for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. But I want people to know out there, people that are going through pain, they're missing their loved ones, or their loved ones are going through, or there's somebody that's sick, It's a horrible thing to go through. Yeah. And there's, human beings, we do some terrible things to ourselves and to each other. We have to go through terrible things, especially if you love someone and they're suffering. But my goodness, if you just try to keep that, that love and that positivity in your heart, you don't give up.
Never give up.
You don't give up.
That was the next day, you said. So he had 15%. And then you guys had you sent out those, like you said, the light and love, whatever you want to call it, the prayers, let's get them in, gather them up onto ourselves, and then put them on him, you and your niece. And then the next day, they're like, well, he jumped another 50%. What?
Yep,
and
at least.
How is that quarter? How is that quarter cold? Like you said, if
I don't know,
was in your underclothes, how is it cold?
It was hot. I mean, I was in a hot state. And I was wearing a real loose. I'm a hippie anyway. And I was wearing, real loose, one of those granny, what do you call it, tunic kind of things, real gauzy. And I don't know. I felt it hit my back.
Where
it went down.
Where did it come from?
I don't
That's
know.
incredible.
Straight up, nothing but sky.
And then you got the picture, which I will be sharing. So thanks for allowing that.
Please do, because if it gives one person hope, it's totally worth it. Because what my son has gone through will not be in vain. And if we can take it and we can give another person hope, and because people go, well, how come your son got healed and mine didn't? I can't answer you that. How come I'm sick and I get hurt, and somebody else doesn't? I have no explanation for that. But I can tell you, when you have something like that, it's I want to say it's a sin or it's bad not to share it. I'm looking for the right word,
No, yeah, I get it.
Gotta reach out, share, to give other people that kind of hope. The same thing with the cardinal and the butterfly and, and just the angel picture. I'm a firm believer. I can't tell you how many times I've called Archangel Michael. I do not play. If there is something that I need to get rid of, Mike, let's go, man. We got, get in here, help me, I can't do this.
I don't mean to chuckle, but when you said, that in my head, I could see you just being like that, that badass mom, like standing in the hotel room, the hospital room, sorry, and saying, look, son, I've called in the big guns. Okay. I'm not messing around. I mean, this is the time to call in the biggest guns that you can. It just makes me smile because I can see, I mean, that is your role. I can see you in that role big time. And as a mom, of course, we would fall into that quite quickly if our children were hurt. But Sysco, how old is your son?
27.
Wow. And
he's a fast tracker.
Yeah.
And a fast tracker is somebody, I mean, I'm a big believer that I don't know what you call it, where, reincarnation, I believe in it. I mean, I believe that there's got to be more. It's multi-level, man. We make it simple and we make it complicated, but where we make it complicated, it's really simple. I mean, it's just something that I've learned.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is. But, there's a little bit to me to believe in that we were in soul groups and, maybe as souls or whatever, we kind of get together and go, yo, I'm going to go through again, but this time I need to do this, and this. I want to learn these things. And I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you got to forgive me because I'm going to mess you up some and we'll put you through a lot of stuff. And I'm like, well, you got to learn it. So I agree. Because I tell my kids all the time, like, look, I'm not mad because I've already forgiven you, but I'm trying not to cuss.
Right.
Are you serious?
You're really
Are you serious to go through this right now? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, what do we have to learn from this? Because, man, but it's hard. And if you just take that route, and I'm like, gosh, man, how much you need to learn in this lifetime? Because Mama tired, Mama is tired. This is why I got the sneakers. They're not just for running. Running towards whatever it is they're doing is for the kicking butt when I get there. Because this is
right. Sysco's taking, kicking ass and taking names, man.
Oh, man.
Oh, my gosh.
It's really gotten to the point where when you choose to just believe that there's a lot more going on than us, and we're just like, okay, you kind of chill a little bit, and it's so hard when you get that phone call. You got $30. You got 30. I had $30 in my account. I just paid bills.
Yeah. I
had no money. And, a plane ticket's well over $1,000 from where I was to where I had to get on short notice. Forget about my car getting there. I mean, I'd have hitchhiked if I had to. I'd have been there in 2-3 days. Guaranteed it. I've done it in a heartbeat. You were not keeping me from my son. My boyfriend goes to work and he's a mechanic, and he calls me up at 8:00 that morning, and I'm just sitting in the chair, just stunned, going, okay, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? You're in that mode, but you're getting done. I'm just packing bags. I know I'm leaving. And he says, I can do this, this, and this. And I said, honey, and this is exactly what I said to him. And this is real personal, but if it'll help somebody, by all means, what do I care, right? I looked at him and I said, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. You need to stop worrying about this. He's in the right hands. I am going to get there. I guarantee you I will be on a plane before this day is out. He says, how are we going to afford it? I said, we're not. He said, but by the time you get home, I will know how I am getting there. Mm-hmm. And I will let you know if I hear anything different. I want you to go to work and I want you to quit worrying about it because you can't do anything from where you are. I got this. And I got all my stuff all my feelers are out. All my stuff is working. Yeah. I guarantee Just have faith. And what did they say in Miracle on 34th Street? Here's another movie. Faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to. So faith is believing in something when common sense tells you not to. I got $30 in my pocket. How am I getting to my kid? I'm getting there. Just plain out straight. I hung up the phone 20 minutes later. I pick up the phone. I don't even know how she found out. A friend of mine in high school, she says, can you get to Philly by 9? And I said, yes, I can. Why? She goes, Bip, I'm hitting the button. You're going.
Oh, wow.
Just bought you a ticket.
Oh.
Get on the plane. Go be with your kid. 35-year-old friend from high school said, you got to be with your kid. Wouldn't take no for an answer. And I got on a plane. And just be firm. Just put that out into the universe, be adamant and put it into the universe and claim it. And it's not, some things aren't going to be supposed to work out. And then you got to kind of figure out what those things are. But by God, if you can move, by all means, move in the direction that you want to go in. That's all I can tell you. And sometimes it's not going to work out, but you did everything you could, because nobody ever got anything by sitting down and crying, going, I can't.
Right.
Stand up and say, I can, and start moving in the direction. Because everything that happened with that, now he wants to go to school and he wants to learn how to help other people that are in the condition that he's in, and that he's going to do it. He's going to give back. He's going to give back. So if he helps 1 or 2 or 3 people, there you go.
Totally worth it. Yeah.
So for, and I mean, like I wasn't taking any guff from anybody.
I can only imagine.
I wasn't taking over. They said, well, you have to leave this room. I said, no, you have to leave.
You're like, excuse me? No.
No, you have to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I stuck with him. I'm still with him.
Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. And if it gives somebody else strength, by all means, Merry Christmas. That's my gift to you. You got to just keep the faith and don't take no for an answer, especially when it comes to somebody you care about. And if all you can do is stand there and hold their hand and read to them and let them know that they're loved, what more could you possibly do? Yeah. Because love, love is that energy. You can't get a higher vibration than that. You really can't. And I can't explain that any more than I can explain what it feels like to love somebody, to hug somebody that you love, that feeling that you get when you connect with that person and you hug them. It might be a friend or somebody you hadn't seen in a while, or, family that and you get that all over warm feeling, I mean, just strive for that, and that's what it feels like when you're in the presence of an angel. I can tell you that right now, times a million. So anybody that says that they're not around, there's a little thing, if anybody's interested in it. And again, I want you to not be deterred by the whole, what you might think about religion and all that, because religion's great and it gives you strength. I mean, I love them all. I mean, I've been to so many different churches and
whatever works, right?
Temples and, drum circles, church on the mountain, and I've tasted it all, and I think it's great because when you're together with people and they're all trying to be happy, what's wrong with that? Picnics are great too. All of it's fantastic, but don't let it deter you because people are telling you the angels belong to this group or that group or whatever. Right. Those people, because it's not, angels don't feel that way. So who do you want to believe?
I'm sure the angels sometimes go, I'm sorry, did you just say that you own us? Because last time I checked.
Yeah. I'm
they're
sure
like, hold on a minute.
Yeah. And spirit guides, everybody's got them. And, everybody got, some people are more connected with theirs than others, and they change over life. It's very Native American. It's kind of cool because even Native Americans, they, if you're in a real, tight tribe, your name changes as your character changes. So a lot of times your spirit guides and the angels or whatever you're connected with, your elders, whatever you want to call them, change along with you because you might need a special group now, or a different one thrown in there to get you through this next part or help out or guide you or whatever. So you don't just have one through, eternity, whatever, So that's kind of cool if you think about it. It's like, they've got it figured out, people. I mean, it's like they know what they're doing. Somebody else has got the wheel. If you just kind of to realize that and go, yeah, all I got to do is stand here and try to be the best person I can be, whatever that is, and try to give back and try to be good to yourself. Be kind if you can. If you mess up, forgive yourself. That's the hardest thing to do, right? Everybody says forgive other people. Try forgiving yourself. That's a toughie.
That's a lot harder, probably. Yeah.
Think about it, right?
Yeah.
So go through that. But if you're interested in trying to get connected a little bit more with the angels, there's a thing you can Google. It's called Hosting the Angels. It's really cool. I thought it was kind of funky at first, but the way they've got it figured out, it really is, if you kick back and look at it, it's a whole setup of getting yourself ready to get your vibration lifted. Kind of cool. You were asking earlier what it was, but and there's a couple different ones out there. Some are more intricate than others, but if you just look at it, pick the one that's right for you. Basically, what it is there's little groups out there. They're all over Facebook and all over social media. So if you just Hosting the Angels and you join those groups, basically what it is you host them. Now, I might have the timings wrong. Forgive me if I do. I think it's you host them for 3 days. So what it is they'll say, okay, I'm hosting the angels right now, and on this date, I'm going to send them out to 3 to 5 to 10 other people, whatever it is. So you either give your name and your first initial of your letter, whatever, your first initial of your last name, whatever group you're in. And they host the angels, and they write the name on a piece of paper or whatever your essence is, whatever you decide to give them. And they say, okay, now go to them. And what you do is you clean your house, which is great because your vibration level is, cleanliness is next to godliness, whatever. But it does raise your vibration when you clean up, like you're having a guest.
Right.
You clean up, you get a white flower, a piece of fruit, and a candle. I think it's a white candle. And you can do whatever else you want that's you. Pictures of your loved ones, I don't know, whatever. You can get it as elaborate or simple as you want. I've seen some really beautiful ones. You set this up on a little table, and at a certain time, you open the door and you go, come in, welcome. And you act for 3 days like you have angels living with you, just as guests. So you think about what you say. You kind of think, I'm telling you, because I can remember the first time I did it, my husband looks at me and he goes, no cussing in the house. We have angels with us.
That would be me. I'd be like, oh boy, what did I just say?
God, you're right. but you think, I said, oh my God, you're right. And every time he does it, and laugh, but it's kind of fun in a way. You can make it as fun as you want.
Like that.
But it's still cool, the little ritual. You actually write on a little envelope, one prayer or hope for yourself, one for a loved one and one for the world, like if you'd like to see something change, and you fold up, you put it under the fruit. And when it's all done, you do something with the flower. I think you bury the flower to put it back into the earth. And I think you eat the apple with your family, or the pear, whatever you pick. And you actually take the envelope and you burn it outside and let it go up smoke. So it's really cool. And you go through a little ritual. And if you think about that, and then you send them off to some other people, and it's like a angel chain letter or something. I don't know, but it's kind of cool. It might sound corny, but if you think about it, you're preparing all this different stuff, and you're kind of preparing yourself in a way, and you kind of like makes you think about it and keeps it around for a little bit as a little reminder, like, lift yourself, do something nice for yourself. You have a beautiful flower, you have the light, you put the candle. Now I had a battery candle on overnight, so you keep the candle burning. But it's just such a neat little thing. And you think something so simple. A lot of people need little rituals like that to try to regroup, your own senses and things like that. And it's really kind of cool. And I brought that whole thing up to tell people about it because I thought it was kind of neat. And I've done it probably 3 or 4 times. And every time, I'm telling you, it really the air felt lifted, just like you do sage and cleanse. And I do that too. But it was different. It just felt different. It was always something little that would happen that would go, wow, sparkles of light, purples and blue that went through my living room. I don't often see that. And those are divine colors, supposedly. Who makes that rule up? I don't know, but supposedly. There's that rule book again. But one day I went to work and I put the battery Kindle on and I went to work, and my husband works very far away from home. He commutes very far, and I know he wasn't home. And we also have an alarm. An alarm was set, and he wasn't there to undo the alarm. And I come home from work, nobody else in my house, and there's a white gossamer feather laying on the table, right by my mother's picture, right next to the candle.
Inside the house.
Who came inside the house? There's nothing in the house. There's no white boas. There's nothing. That there would have been white feathers in my house at that time.
Wow.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from? And who could have gotten in with the alarm? Right. I've got,
alarm was set. So you walked in, you put the code in, alarm shut off.
In there. Yeah. He's got two. So there's 2 codes, 2 separate alarms. Very paranoid man here. So 2.
Good on him, man.
And oh yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And so I had to get through both of them and come in, and you walk around, you look, and then you, instead of turning the battery, I turn the battery one off and relight the candle, because you have to do these things so it reminds you, hey, you've got guests in the house. I mean, however you want to think about that, but it reminds you, I'm going to be a little better today. I'm going to try a little harder today to do that. It's whatever you want to call it, but by golly, if there wasn't a white feather laying on that table. And I just looked at it and just smiled, and she told my husband about it when he came home, and he goes, wow, I mean, he was just amazed. I mean, he gets amazed all the time, but.
Well, because he's married to you, and you have all these incredible things happen to you because you're awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
He's married to Sysco, of course. Well, so where's the feather now? Of course, you kept it, I'm assuming.
I keep it by my mother's picture.
Aw, yeah.
I sure do. It's a little grayer than it used to be because, white feathers don't stay white long, but But how about that? And one time I got in my car and one was on the dashboard of my car. My car was all locked up. So when little things like that happen, we tend to back ourselves out of them. Yep. But, you got to accept the miracles when they come. We can't talk ourselves out of the miracles. We see them all the time. I mean, you can say something as poignant as, a baby being born, a flower blooming, whatever you want to say. But there's a lot of bad out there, and that's shoved down our throats all the time. And you can't help but bump into it. And you can't help but know it's there. So what harm is it going to do if we try a little harder to pick out the good? To pick out the Ave Marias. Know that your loved ones are around. If you're not hearing from them, maybe right now they can't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're busy having to go through the things they're doing. Maybe they're doing things that A was doing. Maybe they're out trying to help other people. Maybe they know you got this, or maybe they're showing you in another way, or they're going through their own thing. It doesn't mean that they don't love you. It doesn't mean that, maybe we're not ready to hear it. I've heard many mediums sit down with people and they said they're getting a message. They're blocking it. They're blocking it because they've got a lot of their own earthly stuff going on, as a human being sitting there, and they've got fear or forgiveness that they got to do. They got to work through first, or something else, I surely can't give you all the answers, but the one answer I can give you is love lasts, And I've had both messages. My mother, whom I love dearly and has turned out to be not my best teacher in life, but my best teacher in her death as well. I went and sat in front of a medium, and I was going to send a message to my dad. I had been sending multiple, I call them happy energy thoughts. It's like, it could be as simple as, hey, Dad, I'm sending you good energy, Can I say bastard on the air?
Of course you can. It's in the Bible, right? I mean, come on. I mean, if we're going to go off that, a lot of people would be like, well, it's not in the Bible. I mean, is shit in the Bible? I like that word too, so I don't know.
Somewhere he's laughing. Nope, Mom. But it's like, I know you're a bastard, but you did the best you could, whatever your job was. Your job was your job, and you did the best thing you could do, and you left me alone. I grew up without a dad, whoopee. Yeah. So, I know out of all your children that nobody else is sending you good thoughts and good energy. So I'm going to go ahead and do it.
Right.
You know, I love you. Thanks for being my father. Thanks for picking strong women. You know,
Yes.
Thanks for picking a good woman to be my mom. And, you know, I hope you're doing okay. So there you go. And that's basically how I do it. So it's just no ritual, you know, you just, and I send happy thoughts, you know.
Yeah.
And I love you for being my dad. And there you go. Thanks for
That's
woohoo.
awesome.
And so I did that for about a month and maybe a little longer. And I went to one of these things again. I sat in front of a friend, you know, that's a medium, and she knew nothing about my father. I don't tell these people anything because I do this on purpose, you know. So I sat down and she says, well, you know, do you have a specific reason? I said, yeah, I like to talk to my dad. And I said, I know my mom's going to come through because she's got that path, you know, like I told you, that path worn to wherever they get here. Boy, poof, she's right there, which I love. And I wasn't sure she'd bring him in, though, because if there is different levels or frequency levels, I guarantee you they're resonating in different spots. Just trust me on that, you know?
Yeah.
So however you want to look at it, you know? And, but I said, you know, if it's at all possible, if he's just funny, but, you know, if he's available, I like to throw a couple words at him. And she said, okay, hang on. And she says, okay, well, here's your mom. And I said, hey, Mom, how you doing? You know, I knew you'd come through. Hey, you know, like I said, I light and breezy. This is exactly how I do it. And I said, thanks for that help last week. I knew that was you. And she looks at me, she goes, yep, that was her. I said, I knew it. And that went on. She goes, okay, she's bringing in, okay, I got a male figure. And she starts describing him. And I'm like, could be. And I said, is she with him? So I'm still not getting it because I don't think she'd be with him. And she goes, well, no, she's bringing him from another place. And I'm like, okay, it's probably him.
Oh, wow.
You know, she's bringing, hang on, she's bringing, oh, all right, here he is. You know, and she's describing how it's going. And I said, well, what's he look like? She goes, I can't see him. He's got his head down. I go, yeah, that's him.
Oh.
Because he would come with his head down. Trust me, you know, It's a shame. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. And like you said, I didn't say much, but, you know, I said, yeah, that's probably him. And I said, well, who does my mom say it is? She goes, well, this is him. She says, it's your father. I said, well, how'd she bring him? She's got him by the, she's got him by
No, that's what she said?
And she's got him by the collar. Like she's dragging.
Oh, my goodness me.
Oh, that is so cool.
Incredible.
I said, okay, well, can you hear me? She said, well, he's not saying anything. He's got his head down. I said, but can he hear me? And she says, he's not saying anything. And she says, your mom says he can hear you. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome, you know? I said, okay. I said, Dad, I love you. You know, I said, Dad, I love you. I said, I got very little memory of you, but I've tried very hard to listen to everybody and find the good in what you were. You cannot blame a rock being a rock. You know, you cannot blame a rock for not being a tree. You know, you were a rock, you know. And, you know, I got some good genes and I got some good stuff over here, you know. And I said, and you picked a good, strong woman. And for that, I thank you. And I thank you for being my father. And I'm going to send you good energy. And I was just saying, you know, like, you know, I'm too young to have the hangups about it. I forgive you, you know. You did whatever, I know whatever you did, you know, we probably agreed on it earlier and, you know, you just got to get through this stuff. I know you're going through it and I'm just talking just like this. And I said, does he hear me? And she said, your mother says he hears you. And I said, okay. And I said, so I'm just going to continue to send you this love energy and see if I can help you get through whatever it is you're going through right now. Cause you're probably in bad shape. And she thinks a minute, the medium, she puts her head down and she says, he hears you. He's lifting his head up. He hears you. And I say, good. Is that energy helping him? And she says, yes, you're the only one sending it. And I said, good. Keep sending that. And that's when my mom spoke up and she says, all right, that's enough with him. He's got an eternity to make up for what he did. So there's some answer there.
Yeah.
Okay. An eternity to make up for things he did. So if he has to go through all the pain he caused, he's a busy guy. Just, you know, no offense, but he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
Because they won't tell you much. I don't know if they're allowed to tell you on the other side all the secrets and everything. You know, again, maybe there's rules, right? But every once in a while, something slips through, and that meant a lot to me. And I'm like, he's suffered enough,
You're like, I'll give you what I can because you're obviously really super busy.
If I'm the only one sending you good energy, I'm just going to keep doing it.
That's a big owie.
Like I said, rock me in a rock, right?
Yeah.
So, and who am I to judge? So my mom says, that's enough for him. That's how she said it. That's enough for him. This is the medium speaking for her, by the way.
Yeah.
Not her voice. She said, that's enough for him. He has an eternity to make up for what he did. I'm going to help him.
Oh.
That's what she said.
Mm.
So there's another thing. Okay. Mean? So maybe, our soul group, maybe if it's a soul group, she can help him through. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And she would be a woman to do that. My mom's pretty cool. So there's that. And then she says, I don't want to talk about him anymore. I want to talk about my grandson. Which one? And then it went on from there. And of course, she told me things that nobody would know. Nobody would know. But, I didn't even know I had to go find them.
That's so cool, though. But, she's where she is, and she's a good person. So she's in kind of the light area, if we want to call it that. Let's just, we'll put it in that box. Yeah. And he's kind of in the grayish area. But that is so cool. So she was basically saying, hey, I can kind of pull him a little bit closer to the light side here. I can help him out. But enough of him. But I got him. Now let's move on to the next thing. That is so cool.
Right. And the whole time I'm visualizing my mother having my dad, who was 6'11", he was 5'5", got him by the collar, drug him in. You're going to talk to your daughter now. Yeah. I could see.
Yeah.
My goodness, how wonderful was that? And then she talked about her grandson, and I'm like, okay, which one?
Right.
The one that's in the South. Okay, what's he doing?
Yeah.
And well, and you're doing a good job letting him do what he's got to do. Stuff coming, but by God, did he? She wasn't kidding.
No.
She wasn't.
Mama don't play.
No, she was not kidding. She has been on and on. I mean, she's been so right so many times. It's not even funny. So whatever she's gone through, she's gotten some good energy. She's able to work through that.
Yeah.
Now, does everybody get that? Yeah, but probably at their own pace. Because like I said, I can drive a car. I'm no Mario Andretti. I don't know. But if you think about it, why would every spirit have, you might have the same capabilities, but maybe, at your own pace and your own thing you've got to go through. So it is as individual as that individual.
Well, and we still have free will on the other side, because obviously your mother chose to help your father, right? But she didn't probably have to do that. Oh,
probably not. No. Unless it was some kind of a contract thing we don't know about. Like, okay, once you do this, then on the other side, I'm going to help you through it.
You're always connected. Yeah. That's a cool kind of thought about the whole thing. Like, well, does free will kind of transfer over?
Yeah, he was a bastard.
Yeah. And yes, we can say that.
He was a rock, though. He was a good rock.
Right. Like you said, it's cool that, you've got these cool traits that you got from him, and then the amazing traits you got from your mom, and it made a really good match to make you. So you're like, thank you for that.
If that was the one that he got here, because, how many people are out there? Well, I never got to see my father. My father took off when I was 3. For some reason, that person was supposed to be your father at that time. And you were supposed to go through what you went through, and he was supposed to go through what he went through. It's all connected. It's all connected. It really is. It's very Avatar. As crazy as that movie was, the plants, everything were all somehow energy-wise. It's just phenomenal. And why would it stop here on Earth?
Yeah.
Why would it stop on Earth? Why are we not connected to the other stuff too?
Yeah, we cannot be that egotistical to think that we are it. So, yeah.
Nope. And, why couldn't you reincarnate, one lifetime on this Earth? Because I'll tell you something that somebody said to me, and it floored me, that everybody who chooses to be, I don't want to say the person's name, but they're pretty famous. Mm-hmm. And you would know the name anyway. And they said, listen, something I've heard, and this person's been doing it for 60 years and very, very smart, wiser than I'll ever be, said that if we could choose to reincarnate, and we chose to reincarnate on Earth, meaning there's other choices, other dimensions. Hey, there's a lot in that statement if you think about it. we are instantly heroes because this is one of the hardest places to reincarnate too. Because we still kill each other here. Yeah. There's still wars.
Yeah.
There's still famine. There's still, so maybe that's when aliens come, or, I don't know all the names and everything else, but I know the Palladians are, just very, they've got this whole love vibe going on, and they're intelligent. And then you've got the worker grays, and you got this and that, and then you bring in the dimensional stuff. So why couldn't we connect to them? Or is that someone who was once human on Earth, or is it evolved intelligent wise, or is it just, wow, your mind could blow? But it starts getting so complicated. But then again, at the same time, again, so simplistic. Why would this be the only shot we got? If we are energy and we're just trying to, for some reason, evolve into the best energy we can be and raise it to the highest vibration, we would have to go through multiple things. Because if you don't go through bad things, you don't have bad days, how are you going to appreciate a good day? In Native American, I'm Cherokee and Lenape. One of the so many wise things around the power circles I've learned from elders, I'll tell you, the wisdom is incredible. And he just looked at me and said, okay, if you were to take your journey every day and walk through a beautiful field with flowers and birds singing and everything else, and the path was always easy, and what kind of a human being would you be at the end of that path? Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have anything. You would have never known pain. You would have never known heartache. You would never know loss. If you don't learn loss, you never learn gain. If you don't lose love, you don't know what it feels like to have love, back and forth. And it makes so much sense. But then again, when you pile that on with how they talk about healers. Now, healers are not medicine men. Medicine men are people who have medicine. Medicine is characteristics, so people get that mixed up. It has nothing to do with Tylenol, but a healer is someone who would take someone who is sick and heal them either with herbs and time and care and everything else, just like you would think a healer would be. So they say the best way to know how to treat someone with a broken leg is to have had a broken leg.
Right.
So there's a simple statement. If you bring that into life, okay, it makes sense. We go through all these things, but then if we do carry on, which I believe we do with my whole heart, that for some reason, that's when all that knowledge of maybe past lives and things come together. How quick, I don't know. And maybe we compound it and go, wow, what a buzz that was. That lifetime was crazy. I learned so much stuff, and I don't know that I want to go through that again right now, But how cool would that be if we are in soul groups? Have you ever met someone, instantly thought that, man, I know you, I have been on battlefields to do soul rescue and have seen other people with me and myself and things like that, where the spirits were instantly drawn because they recognized the soul that came to help them. Mm-hmm. Explain that. If there's no reincarnation, how did that person recognize a soul? And why was I drawn to that battlefield at that time in that place and got such a reception when others have been there day in, day out on the hour and not gotten a word? It's not me. It's not my ability. It's may very well be something much bigger than me, and that's my soul. And that's your soul, and that's their soul, and soul memory. So explain that one. It's not the first time I've heard that. There's a gentleman named Patrick Burke who's given up everything. I mean, he stopped working. He's retired now and everything. And all he does is battlefield rescue. Wow. And he just has this insatiable, what a wonderful thing. There's a lot of people that do that, but it's taking that no man left behind to the ultimate level.
Right.
There's people that are stuck there, and I've known people that have been drawn to Gettysburg, specifically Vicksburg, which I just left not too long ago. And he walked up in there, and he had no clue. He didn't do this. You know, he didn't have knowledge of this. And he just had this overwhelming feeling when he stepped on that battlefield. He was getting memories, and he was getting pains, you know, like being shot. And he went back and he researched it, and the names he was getting, he found in the book. And the reincarnation of, and he swears himself that he had died on that battlefield. And he goes back and he tries to wow, right? Save the souls that he fought with in the Civil War now, so they can all cross. And that's just wild.
Yeah, it's just the same with, you know, children with those kind of memories. And they're talking about things that their parents are like, there's no way they saw anything like that on TV. I mean, I don't let them watch things like that. They don't even go outside the house. They're like 3 or 2 years old, right? They can barely talk, but they're recounting these very detailed type of experiences. And you're like, so how does that happen? How do you explain that? Well, well, Sysco, we're running out of time here. Do you want to speak a little bit here about...
That went fast.
Well, yeah, because you're like, I mean, you're a bunch of fun to have on, and you're extremely interesting. It's like a blink.
Wow.
Can we just, do you want to plug yet you and Steve's book, or are we going to wait on that? Okay.
Well, I'd be happy to. It's definitely in the works. Unfortunately, like I said, Steven has been so sick. As soon as I got my stuff taken care of, it's one of those things I know is happening. It's almost done. We've got like the last little bit to go, you know? And as soon as I got my stuff and his stuff started, and it's just life. So what you do is you look at one of these things and say, it's going to come out. It's going to come out. You know, it's definitely coming. And I really like it, and I'm not saying that because it's mine. I just like it because if I was somebody that was walking into the library with all the stuff out there now it's almost, we've gone from me being maybe 10 years old, going to a public library, I'm looking for real ghost stories, and being told there are no real ghost stories, to going in, and I'm sure the whole wing's dedicated to real ghost stories at this point. But if you're looking for something that you can pick up and go, I had an experience, and let me read this book and see if anything that I experienced matches up in any way to what's in here. Because I didn't realize how many experiences I did have until I started writing this. And I even had to cut it down and just pick a couple that might fit into kind of sort of this category. But the categories are really up to the reader. And not embellish them, not add color to them. You know, it's non-colorized. Because I wanted that person who was looking for some answers to go, that's exactly how I saw that. Like the story I told earlier about my mother coming in the door, and I heard the door, but the door didn't move. What was that about? Why would you add that? Why would you take the energy to add that? I can't answer that. But that's how it happened. And then the sparkle and the crackle and the way she just materialized, and she looked so much better, and doggone if she didn't look healthy and happy, you know, it was such a contrast to the earlier visits that she had had when she had just passed. So if they can take that and add their own experience in there and go, wow, yes, that's how it happened. That's exactly it. Or maybe trigger a memory. You know, like, yes, I do remember the crackle, or I remember this, or how they spoke without their mouth moving. It was all telepathic, but it was their voice. To maybe, you know, underline it for them, you know, maybe feel like they're not alone. Because now, like I said, when I was searching, there was like zero information or very little, and you had to really dig, like the Hans Holzers and, you know, different things. You had to go through the occult and try to figure it out.
Right.
Where now there's so much, there's almost so much, there's nothing, because you don't know where to look, you know. And I'm not saying mine is better than anybody else's. I'm sure there's wonderful novels out there, and I read them all the time, and encyclopedias and, you know, different things. But the way I tried to write it was just the way I'm talking to you tonight. So if you can take a real experience and add it to your real experience and come up with an answer for you, then this book is for you. And that's the way I try to do it. And I try to leave the conclusion up to the reader.
And Steve. So
yes.
It's your personal experiences and then Steve's as well, right?
Well, yes. What Steve has done is come back as kind of like a commentator after the chapter.
Okay.
And the way I asked him to do it is like, just when we're talking, if it reminds him of a story, tell it.
Right.
If it reminds him of an experience, add it, tell it. If you disagree with something I say it. What's your opinion? Give your voice into it. So it's called We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life. And it's ghosts, spirits, and darker shades of whale. So it's a little bit of everything. It's angels, and it's the little bit of the dark side in there, and it's a lot of visits and trying to help stranded spirits or ghosts. And it's all of Steve's anecdotes, and he kind of walks along with us and kind of keeps the comedy going in there and interjects throughout. So it's kind of cool. It's a little different, And we were shooting for last Halloween, but then I had the big tragedy stuff, and then he had some, and it just life keeps happening.
Life does.
These things come out when they're supposed to come out. And if it's there, if it gets out in time to help somebody or some young person or somebody who's struggling with an idea and they don't quite know how to deal with it, and it helps them, then it came out right on time. So that's that.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to see that. I kind of got a little sneak preview of a possible cover, so thank you. That is amazing.
Yes.
So what about any other social media sites where people can find you, or websites, anything you want to plug?
Well, since the last, unfortunately, I've focused completely on my son, which is, fortunate as well. And my websites are down, but you can find me anytime on Facebook. And if you ever see anything on there that, and they will be opened up again. I have the Bohemian Feather and Wickedly Wired Wearable Art. I do wire sculpture, and I do a whole lot of what I call hippie chic, bohemian style wall decorations and vintage dream catchers and Native American dream catchers and things like that as well. So they will be up and going. And you can always contact me on Facebook or here through Shannon. And just to end, I want to tell you that, again, holidays are hard. And I urge you to do something nice for yourself. And if you feel like, you want to go bring flowers to your loved one or something like that, you can't buy them for yourself. Put them on the table, say some nice words about them, tell them you love them, because they're listening and they can hear you and they love you still. And I'm living proof of that. So you're not alone. Okay?
Sysco, again, thank you so much for sharing all that personal information. I wasn't expecting you to ever do that. It really was a somber note for me, for sure. So thank you so much for doing that.
You're more than welcome. I'm humbled by your kindness.
I mean, somber but uplifting.
Well,
you know what I'm getting at. It was a good story at the end there. So thank you.
He is doing well, and like I said, if it helps one person to have hope, and they're having a dark spot, just remember the darkness doesn't always stay, and one spot of light can wipe out a darkened room anytime. So if you can't find the light, just carry it within yourself and bring it with you.
That gossamer feather, or that quarter, right?
Amen, sister. Just believe. Okay?
So good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. And I love you all, and keep listening to Shannon. She's one of the best out there.
Oh, thanks, Sysco.
You're welcome, my love. Have a good evening and Happy Holidays to you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Love you.
Love you, babe.
Bye.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam. By the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on. You are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.